All right, everybody. We're going to go ahead and start this. Good morning, not good afternoon and evening. We're calling this meeting of the TRPA Regional Planning Committee to order. The date is Wednesday, September 25th, 2024. It is now 3:17. That being said, just for everybody's clarification, some people will have to leave about 5. We'll be time stamped dead in no matter what at midnight. Hopefully we get there by 5 when I lose a quorum, because that's another issue. That being said, the first item on the agenda is roll call to determine quorum. Marja?
Ms. Aldine,
Here.
Ms. Gustafson,
Here.
Mr. Henigman, Mr. Keycapper,
Here.
Ms. Loomer,
Here.
Mr. Settlemeyer.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
I will now go over, thank you for that. We'll now go over the remote and in-person meeting rules for the day. For the members of the public who are joining us remotely, to observe the meeting, go to the trpa.gov under the calendar heading. Click on the governing board hybrid meeting for September 25th, 2024. There you'll find a link to the public webinar hosted on Zoom. To address committee members directly with your comments, raise your hand in Zoom by clicking raise hand at the bottom of your screen. At the appropriate agenda item, with your hand raised, you will be unmuted by the TRPA staff and you'll have 3 minutes to address the committee. If you have used the dial-in number to join by telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand and be unmuted. For items that are agendized as informational only, we will hear from public comment during the general public comment period at the end of the meeting. For items agendized as action or possible action, we will hear those public comments before the committee takes any action. To remote committee members, or as they become remote committee members, if you wish to speak, please also raise your hand on Zoom. You will find the hand icon on the bottom of your screen. Remote committee members may not use the chat box to make any comments or to have any sidebar conversations. Please, everyone, remember to mute your mic unless you're speaking to cut down on background noise. Finally, I would also like to ask that all remote members turn on their cameras if they're able in that respect. Members of the public who have joined us in person, please raise your hands at the appropriate times for public comment, and you will be called out to front to speak. There's also a sign-in sheet, which will also facilitate, will be available to individuals. The press is kind of asked for people to spell their names. So hopefully sign up in that respect, because that'll save us a lot of time. No offense. If everybody gets up and spells their names, that's going to take us just a little bit. To ensure everyone has time to make their desired comments, you can also agree with the previous commenter rather than making comments that repeat what others have said. When we were in the Nevada legislature, myself and Senator Keycapper, ditto was always appreciated in that respect in order to try to facilitate the process. I also understand that we allowed organizations to have a representative in order to speak a longer period of time, thus kind of hoping to represent the group. That's the idea of giving those representative organizations more time. If that's not necessarily followed 100%, then I don't know why we're doing it, but that's just my opinion. Committee members who are in person, please raise your hand if you wish to comment and speak clearly in the microphone or in front of you. If you're viewing the webinar on a personal computer, yeah, it takes about 10 minutes to get through the introductory, sorry. Please ensure that your microphone and speakers are turned off to prevent audio feedback in the room. If a committee member needs to ask clarifying questions during the presentations, please do so, but save your deliberations until the presentation is complete. The next item is the approval of the agenda. Everyone has seen the agenda. I don't believe, do we have any changes that need to be made, Mr. Hester?
No changes.
Thank you, Mr. Hester. In that respect, is there a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. I believe I turn this over to Marja for that vote, or no? Or is that just approved? Nope, automatically approved. Thank you for that, Mr. Hester. I will deem the agenda approved then as posted. Approval of the minutes. We are now on agenda item 2, approval of the minutes. We have set a minutes from the June 26, 2024 meeting on page 57. Do any members of this committee wish to make any changes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented or as amended. All those would have to say in favor or object. Do I have any motions from the committee on those minutes, or any corrections or changes need to be made?
I'll move approval.
Moved, approved. So all those, can we do it by consent or voice, or do we have to go through individually? Voice. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to move to item 3, which is informational presentation on amendments to the Homewood Mountain Ski Resort Area Master Plan 5145 Westlake Boulevard, Homewood, California. Placer County Assessors Parcel Numbers 097-060-444 et al. TRPA file number CEPP 20014-0636-03. So that will come for us at this point in time. As a reminder to the public, since this item is information only, we will hear any public comments at the final public comment agenda item. We will now ask Paul Nielsen to present and introduce the applicants.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director. I'm going to just tee this up for Paul Nielsen before he begins the staff presentation. I just really wanted to begin by thanking the community for coming out today and for your patience. I know we had some other items that ran over, so thank you for being here and for the considerable amount of people that are online on Zoom. We can see the passion that you feel for Lake Tahoe, for Homewood, for the West Shore. I wanted to assure you on behalf of TRPA and the board how seriously we're taking this item, how much we consider the West Shore a beloved part of Lake Tahoe, and how much we care about your concerns. And we really want this to be upfront understood to be an informational item. There's no action being taken today. I want to make sure everybody was clear on that. And Paul will walk you through the particulars. But we want to hear from you and we want to speak our piece, PEACE. That was an initiative that the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation had out several years ago. It's being resurrected in local governments and local meetings. We can have differences of opinion and disagree, but we can do it respectfully. And we want to work that way going forward in the coming months as we evolve this work. So thanks for being here. And I want to turn it over to Paul and reassure you that we're taking this planning process very seriously in upholding the integrity of the master planning process in the basin. And we will keep you informed as best as we can as things evolve. Over to you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Paul Nielsen, and I'm a Special Projects Manager at TRPA. This item involves informational item for the Homewood Master Plan Amendment. Staff report can be found on page 181 in your packet. We're going to keep it short today. The presentation hopefully is about 15 minutes. And I'm going to start by giving a little background and then I'll introduce the applicants. After that, we'll spend a few minutes talking about public access comments and concepts for your consideration, and then we'll turn it back to the committee for questions and take public comment. So again, no action is requested by the committee today. Next slide. So why are we here? We're here again to hear from the public, to hear from the committee, to get feedback on some ideas we have about public access and some of the other issues. But again, no action. We're working towards a recommendation in the next couple months. And so it's just here really to get you familiar with the project. Next slide. Just vicinity map showing where Homewood is. I think everybody knows where Homewood is on the West Shore. That blue sort of blob there represents the Homewood ski area and the area that's encompassed by the master plan. Next slide. So I want to talk about what a master plan is. So I included the definition from the American Planning Association, talking about what a master plan is. It's not a specific development permit. It's a higher level planning document that looks at sort of a broad brush approach and how we could approve something consistent with the regional plan, land coverage, transit, air quality, issues like that, but not specific details that come later from the planning level on development permits. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see the definition from the TRPA plan that talks about how TRPA sees a master plan. And also, there's a statement here at the very bottom that I want to re-emphasize, that the master plan, again, is not to be construed as a project approval, and its adoption shall not guarantee approval of any level of development. Next slide, please. And this is just a slide that shows various master plans around the basin. We only deal with certain types of master plans at TRPA, marinas, we got the airport on the South Shore and ski resorts. So you can see the large sort of tan area on the right side there is for Heavenly. Next slide, please. Next, I wanted to show the TRPA recreation policy statement from the TRPA goals and policies that provide guiding policy direction for managing recreational capacity for the general public. So typically you're used to seeing quantitative statements from the regional plan about water quality, air quality. This is more sort of a qualitative statement, but this policy statement is important as it directly relates to public access. which is a key issue with the Homewood Master Plan Amendment that you will have likely heard about, we'll hear about today, and that we will discuss later in this presentation. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see a goal statement from the Homewood Master Plan approved in 2011, which states, a central goal of the plan is to restore Homewood as a key gathering center for Lake Tahoe's West Shore and to maintain the heritage of a ski resort that can be enjoyed equally by local residents and visitors. So this is a goal statement that was in the plan approved by the board in 2011, and that plan, the goal statements in that plan with this amendment do not change. So these goal statements are still proposed today as being unchanged. So to approve the proposed amendment, when we get to that recommendation, which we have not formulated at this time, the governing board must find that changes are consistent with these statements. Next slide, please. So this slide shows additional goal statements and includes the key goal of the master plan, which is to restore Homewood as the community center of the West Shore. I've heard a lot of public, I'm sure you have too, and this statement resonates strongly with many people in the West Shore, as does the third bullet, which states, preserve Homewood Mountain Resort reputation as a small, no crowds on the slope, family-friendly enclave that can be enjoyed equally again by local residents and visitors alike. Next slide. So in 2011, the TRPA Governing Board certified the environmental impact statement and approved the Homewood Master Resort Community Enhancement Project. The Community Enhancement Program was a TRPA incentive-based program that offered incentives such as residential units, commercial floor area, and increased building heights in exchange for environmental improvements like enhancements in transit, water quality, scenic quality. It was kind of like the Waldorf Astoria project, where they brought additional environmental improvements to the table in exchange for certain commodities. An example of that is the project, for example, is going to treat water quality to the 50-year storm, whereas in most cases, typically it's a 20-year storm. And again, that was the same requirement that the Waldorf Astoria met, and it represents those sort of community enhancements going back to 2011. Next slide, please. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Graham, who will introduce a few concepts as it relates to public access. You have undoubtedly heard about whether public access will be provided at Homewood in the future. And you'll see some language today from the applicants that indicate they are proposing to allow long-term public access. But we're talking about ways to ensure that the long-term public access remains in the long term after, if this project is approved, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And this issue is one of the largest hurdles. It is the largest hurdle left to clear the review of the application. And so the challenge before us is to identify enforceable specifics that will ensure the general public has long-term access to the ski hill. Preserving public access is central to ensuring three things. To ensuring that future operations are consistent with the environmental impact statement. So that environmental analysis that was certified by the board in 2011, that was prepared for the master plan. 2, it's to ensure consistency with the community enhancement program. The community enhancement program wasn't just about commodities and environmental improvements. It was about building a community asset where people could go and enjoy and walk around and have a sense of place. You can think about the Heavenly Village, where the gondola comes down, and it's really a gathering place for people in the community. And thirdly, to ensure long-term consistency with the vision and the goals that I talked about of the master plan. And so that's why this is really a critical issue. And I'm going to turn it over to Graham, who's been putting a lot of thought into this issue.
Yep, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so I'm gonna just kind of recap some of that and hopefully help tee up a further discussion for the committee. As you have heard and will hear in public comments, public access is such a big issue to this project. And as we have heard from the developer, in this case, Homewoods, and hopefully we'll hear that, they're not proposing to go private, and they've stated their intent to keep their mountain open to the public. This is important because, as Paul was saying, the existing master plan the 2011 environmental review and Homewood's inclusion in the community enhancement program, that all assumes that, or all of that assumed the status quo with respect to the public's ability to access and enjoy Homewood's recreational opportunities. So as Paul was saying, our challenge is to figure out how we can ensure that Homewood's operations remain consistent with these existing approvals, which again, at this time, we understand Homewood is not seeking to change. If Homewood wants to move forward as proposed as a publicly accessible mountain, we need to consider how we implement and protect this public access. And like I said, we've prepared a list of talking or discussion points, which we think are important to kind of get your feedback on today. Again, for everyone's benefit, no action. We're not taking any action today. This is a listening session for us and for to hear from the committee members so that we can go back and do our work that we need to do to kind of implement the direction or the sort of what we're hearing. Do we have that slide next, Catherine? Or we can, yeah. Sure. Sounds good.
Just for edification, make sure we state our name for the record for those people out in TV land that may not be able to understand the difference between two people's voices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Paul Nielsen, Special Projects Manager. I think at this point, we'll turn it over to Ed DeVito with Discovery Land Corp, who will introduce the project to you. He will share their version of the public access language, and then we'll come back to Graham and share some of his points.
Thank you, Paul. Members of the Regional Planning Committee, we truly appreciate your public service, your time today, and your focus on our application. I'm Ed DeVita. I'm a partner with Discovery Land Company. I represent Homewood. I'm joined by team members Ryan Porter and Jackie Braver. I'd like to start the presentation out with a key point. Notwithstanding anything from the past, we understand the master plan addresses public access to the mountain. And we're not asking for any changes to those requirements. Everyone will continue to have access to Homewood Mountain Resort on a first come, first served basis, with no exceptions. Later in the presentation, as Paul previewed, we'll share our proposed public access language that the TRPA has requested. I'd like to make another point for the committee. We are only here today to request revisions to the site plan to improve the skier experience and the look and feel of the development while maintaining all the key components and requirements of the project. We want to move forward with the gondola and other ski infrastructure improvements for everyone's benefit. And we want to bring the approved master plan to fruition, finally, with our proposed site plan improvements to improve the project for everyone. And that's it. That's all. So let's move on to the guiding principles. These are right from the approved master plan. Our team refers to these principles and to this master plan every day in our work. And they're listed up on the board, and they include updating aging infrastructure, preserving Homewood's basic personality, restoring Homewood as a key gathering center, maintaining the heritage of the ski resort that can be enjoyed equally by local residents and visitors, minimizing impacts on traffic, and preserving the character of Homewood by developing new facilities that reflect the existing architectural character of the area. Everything in our application conforms to these principles, and they're taken directly from the approved master plan. Next slide, please. The approved master plan also had a list of project components. These are derived from the vision for updating aging infrastructure and creating a bed base that does not exist today. Our application before you continues to include these elements. Those involve replacing the aging matting chair with a gondola, upgrading the Ellis chair, improving snowmaking, adding up to 225 residences, adding a boutique hotel, adding 13 on-site workforce housing units, a new base-mounted facility with food and beverage, ski school, et cetera, a new parking garage with 272 day parking spaces, day skier parking spaces, a new mid-mountain lodge with gondola terminal, learn to ski lift, food and beverage, community and other sundries, and employing alternative transportation. Next slide, please. So why are we proposing revisions? What are the revisions and what's not revised? Let's start with why. So we want to modify the site plan to improve the Homewood skier experience, respond to current conditions and requirements, and have the project fit better into the West Shore neighborhood. So included in the why are repositioning of the gondola, responding to the updated code requirements that have happened since 2011, supporting practical operational requirements. Some of you might have been out on the tour and saw that in the original approvals, the gondola base terminal was located actually up on the hill. And we're looking to bring that down into the base to make it more practical, more functional, and safer. Responding to changed market conditions as well. So from those drivers, what are the specifics, and only the specifics? And those include relocating the gondola terminal off the face of the mountain, realigning the gondola slightly because of the relocation, adding a gondola cart barn at the top of the mountain where we can store the carts during strong storms. Even the storms might go for days. So they're out of the weather, they don't ice over, and they don't get loaded with snow. And then when the storm clears, we can get the gondolas out, get them back on the cable, and get the mountain back into operation, which will improve the skier experience and it'll be safer. Reducing the massing to open view corridors at the project. Ryan will show you some visuals on that in just a moment. Reducing density, refining building layouts, and refining the building architecture. And what's not revised, which is actually simple to say, but a much bigger category. Number one, access to recreation for the general public. That's not revised. It's exactly the same. And number two, everything else. All other representations in the existing approvals, everything in the approvals is not revised other than what we're explicitly pointing out to you in our application. Next slide, please. Let me take a moment to talk about the extensive community outreach process that we performed over the last 18 months with using a version of this presentation that you're seeing today. We've had over 30 community meetings. Hybrid meetings, community presentations to thousands of residents on the West Shore, community groups and business owners. We've taped those presentations and they've been posted at our informational website. And we've shared those through the local homeowner associations throughout the West Shore. And we've provided public site tours that were scheduled showing the locations of the approved and proposed gondola terminal at the north base, among other elements, including the locations of the newly proposed buildings. Next slide, please. So community access. This is obviously one of the most interesting subjects that we have to talk about. And before I hand things over to Ryan, I want to emphasize that this application represents a Homewood project that continues to provide community access in full conformance with what was desired and approved with the master plan in 2011. While the proposed revisions do not propose any changes to public access that's already required, people do continue to cast aspersions about our plans. The language is guided by the master plan. It's on page 181. It was read earlier in this meeting, and I'll pull it out, which is that Homewood is to be enjoyed equally by residents and visitors alike. So we're not going to expose our business or our companies or this project to a liability by favoring any particular group or group of people over another group or groups of people. Anyone will be able to ski at Homewood on an equal footing to anyone else, as always. We have a total conformance mentality, and we're excited with our partners to deliver the approved master plan with the proposed site plan improvements to the community. In addition, we explicitly state the following that includes new strict monitoring and enforcement provisions to reassure all of the public will have access. So this is the language that Paul and Graham referred to earlier. And I'm going to go ahead and read it because there's a lot of content in here and you can see it on the screen. Homewood Mountain Resorts snow skiing products and packages, such as ski season passes and day tickets, will be available for purchase by any member of the general public. That's anyone on a first come, first served basis. On peak days, day lift tickets may not be available for sale. Anyone with a valid ski pass or ticket for any given day can access the mountain to ski during operating hours. During the ski season, all skiing recreational areas on the mountain, including lifts, will be accessible by anyone with a valid ski pass or ticket during operating hours. Access to the restrooms, lockers, recreation, retail, hiking trails, and parking facilities for the general public will be available to anyone on a first-come, first-served basis during operating hours, some of which, not including the hiking trail access, may require a fee. Parking reservations may be required in peak periods. And then to monitoring and enforcement. HMR shall submit an annual report to the TRPA staff demonstrating compliance with these requirements. Violation of these permit conditions may result in monetary penalties or other enforcement actions as determined by the TRPA governing board. So as I said earlier, we're only seeking to revise the site plan for the approved master plan and nothing else. That's the application that's before you. We know we can improve the skier experience with our proposed revisions. And now I'd like to introduce Ryan Porter, who will present project specifics and details about the application. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is Ryan Porter with Homewood. Next slide, please. To reiterate, this is an approved project, and we're excited to share with you the latest revision to this master plan here today. So thank you so much, committee. Homewood consists of 3 main development locations, including the north base adjacent to Highway 89, the south base located just further south, and the mid-mountain located at the top of the new gondola terminal and old Madden chairlift location. Next slide, please. On the left here is a snapshot of the approved 2011 master plan north base layout. And on the right is a proposed revised master plan layout. Our team has worked diligently to both maintain the key elements and layout within the approved master plan, while also breaking up the scale, mass, and positioning of buildings. The land uses and their locations are consistent between the 2 plans. Next slide. Here you can see an overlay of the 2011 approved master plan in red and the current master plan revision in beige. You can clearly see both the similarities of building positioning while also noting the improvements made by splitting out the village structures, pulling the gondola down closer to the core of the village while keeping it centrally located. This will improve the day skier experience. Next slide, please. The revised master plan maintains all key elements from the approved 2011 master plan, including creating a bed base across the north area with 71 residences and a 73-unit boutique hotel, while also providing additional skier services such as food and beverage offerings, ticketing, commercial retail shops, restrooms, lockers, ski rental spaces, and a large day skier parking facility with 272 stalls. Next slide, please. Switching over to the south base, this was always contemplated as a residential enclave, and the master plan revision upholds this. The revision consists of repositioning the structures on the site while reducing residential units from the approved 95 down to 51. Next slide, please. Here you can see again the overlay of the 2 plans and the proposed slight revision to layouts while providing less units overall. Next slide. The south base is separated by a pedestrian bridge spanning across the Homewood Creek, and a key portion of the south base development will be to restore and improve the Stream Environment Zone, or SEZ, here. Additionally, the approved 2011 master plan noted that maintenance facilities should be moved to the mid-mountain and all day skier parking should be shifted to Lot 4 on the north base, as we just shared with you. We are implementing both of those changes and plan no deviations. Next slide, please. Here you can see the approved mid-mountain lodge on the left and the proposed layout revision on the right. All key elements are consistent with the approvals, including a community pool, facility maintenance building, gondola, and lodge. The one difference is the request to include the cabin storage structure, which is note 4 on the right, which Ed outlined before, and that will improve the overall skier experience and extend the life of the gondola cabins. No further changes are made at the mid-mountain. Next slide. Beyond the two-dimensional plan comparisons our team has analyzed, the rendered views to ensure conformance with the approved scenic evaluation. On the left here is the 2011 master plan view from Highway 89 over to Fawn Street. And on the right is our revised rendering, which highlights the consistency with scale, character, and architectural elements. Frankly, I think it's a great improvement that we've made with some of the revisions, specifically at this corner and to the garage itself. Next slide. Here is a view from Highway 89 into the village core. And you can see how our revised layouts have split up the continuous north base structures, creating a wonderful view corridor, both up mountain for folks along the roadway and also down to the lake from the ski run above. This added view corridor better blends the development into the scale and character of the surrounding neighborhood. Next slide, please. And lastly, here's a view along Highway 89, where you can see residential units at lots 7 and 8. No drastic changes have occurred here. Next slide. As mentioned by Paul, Homewood was approved as a Community Enhancement Program Project, or CEP. And as such, we have obligated ourselves to not just meet, but exceed standards. The master plan revision proposes no changes to meeting all of these CEP requirements. Specifically, we're pursuing leading green initiatives. We're reducing the total development coverage beyond our obligations of 13%, and improving forest health through the forest fuels reduction work, which has just now begun. And lastly, we're required to restore 500,000 square foot on the mountain. And to date, we've restored over 600,000. So not only have we met our obligation, we've exceeded it before we've really broken ground. Next slide. Additionally, alternative transportation programs identified within the approved 2011 master plan are still key components and strategies within our current master plan revision. We have maintained key elements of the land plan, including a shuttle drop-off location and a public bus transit stop in front of the North Base day skier parking lot for both employees and visitors alike. Our plan revisions and reduced density have actually resulted in an overall reduction in traffic trip generation. And we will continue to prioritize traffic mitigation throughout the implementation of the development and into annual operations. We will continue to monitor traffic patterns, report findings and actions annually as required by TRPA. Next slide, please. From a timeline perspective, work has begun on Lot 3, as some of you may know. And once the master plan revision is approved, we'll shift our focus to the North Base Community Gathering Center lots. Here's a timeline showing how we plan to go through those lots over the years. Once we complete work at the North Base, we'll then shift our focus over to the South Base Residential Enclave. Next slide. Perhaps more importantly than the structures themselves are the key improvements to the mountain ski experience and the community. Those items that we will be doing concurrently with the built product include fuels reduction program, which again is underway and will go on years to come during the development, mountain snowmaking improvements, SEZ restoration efforts, and the removal of the old Tahoe Inn. Amongst others, we'll make additional improvements to the mountain as we go through the development process. And last slide. Overall, we're extremely excited about the progress our team has made with the master plan progression and improvements made to the building layouts, massing, scale, and character. We are confident that the revisions made to pull the gondola down to the village core is an overall improvement And we continue to maintain a conformance approach to this master plan. And lastly, with the amount of folks on the call and pending comments here, we hope to just reserve the right to respond to any comments made after this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. We're turning over to Graham Paul Nielsen, TRPA. So I just want to say this public access issue, it's new to TRPA, right? We haven't dealt with it before in master plan. So there isn't language I can magically pull out of the heavenly master plan and apply to this project. Primarily because for Heavenly, for example, it's public land, right? And so, you know, restricting public access to public land is a very, very difficult thing to do. Here, except for about 200 acres, it's private land. And so that's why this is sort of a new conversation for us. And Graham has some thoughts on this. What we're looking for from the committee and the public, quite frankly, is are we thinking about the right ideas here? Are there things we haven't thought about? Would you like us to look into things that perhaps you won't see on the board today or hear from the public? And so we're looking for the committee's response to some of our initial ideas and things we haven't thought about related to public access. And with that, I'll turn it over to Graham.
Thanks again, Paul. Graham, St. Michelle Agency Council. I can say that it's not just me thinking about this a lot. We've all been thinking about this a lot here internally. So we'll tee it up. I just want to kind of go back a little, put a little bit more tee up on this discussion. You know, nothing in the current approvals imposes explicit conditions on public access. However, all of these previous approvals have assumed a publicly accessible mountain. And they assume no impacts to recreation. So if that's changed, you know, we're looking at being in a situation of a new type of project. If it's not changed, which is again kind of where we're at, that's the way it's been proposed. We're looking at those measures to ensure this public access. What is the right, you know, way to ensure this public access continues as had been assumed in these existing approvals? So this slide here is really kind of the teeing up of the issues, and I'll go through it, and then I'll, you know, maybe we turn it back over to the committee, kind of end our part in this. Defining the public, you know, I want to say, like, when we start looking at what does providing public access mean, these are the types of questions, you know, we have to grapple with. So what does the public mean? Does that mean everybody, or is it do we distinguish between members of you know, certain real estate ownership or private HOA group and everybody else, or is everybody the public? What does open to the public mean? We're talking public access to just recreation, or are we going to get into other things like amenities and services, you know, rental equipment, food and beverage? How much public access? So does there need to be a minimum amount of access offered to the public? If we just say it's open to the public, or how do we, you know, guarantee that there's a floor amount? Do we want to get into that? You know, something open-ended like reasonable, or trying to identify minimum quantities of, say, like X number of season passes or whatever that are sold to the public. So do we need to set a floor? And then moving down, we look at, you know, full equality versus preferential access. There's lots of different things that ski resorts and can do of, you know, priority access, reserving parking. Do we need to get into that and address those types of topics? And then pricing is another one. Obviously, if you have no controls on pricing, presumably pricing can be so high that you know, it really is constructive denial of access. That's just something, you know, something we need to think about. And then, you know, enforcement, reporting, and third-party involvement. How is TRPA going to enforce any conditions that we put in an approval, and what kind of reporting and how frequent? This third-party involvement, we've thought about, you know, potentially using a third-party independent, like, auditor type, where they can report to them, and then this third party would report to TRPA, so it's kind of independent. And then finally, public comment on Homewood's draft language. Do we want to engage and have the public really, to what level, be giving us feedback that, we're going to use to edit? And if we come up with our own language, do we want to have that be vetted through a public process? So those are, this is kind of the issues. And I think if the committee wants to just go through a discussion, we can take notes and hear feedback.
Committee members, do you have any questions at this time? Ms. Aldine?
Shelley Aldine for the record. Do we have a handle on the any historic public use numbers? Thinking of establishing a baseline of some sort.
Yeah, we do have numbers. I don't have them personally. It's held pretty tightly by the applicants, but we do have some numbers. And those numbers show, generally an average usage, 1,500-1,700 on a good day. Obviously, business at Homewood over the last 10 years has changed, right? As infrastructure has gotten older, as the Epic passes have been offered to people and they go to multiple resorts. The busiest day that I've seen from this data at Homewood is in excess of 3,500 people. But 3,500 people on a busy day is a very crowded resort. But that's been confirmed, from the data and from talking from mountain operations people at Homewood.
Could you, Paul, what is we talk about payouts, persons, at any one time, excuse me, under the provisions of the master plan, it was 1,704 payouts for during the winter months per day.
That's correct. But that is not to be interpreted as an upper limit of the number of people on the mountain, right? That's just a recreational capacity measuring stick that we use. So for example, Heavenly Ski Area has a payout allocation as well. And we're not out there on any given day counting the number of skiers and making sure they shut down the resort at that number. That's not how that number is to be used. It is really just sort of an average usage.
Okay.
It's a function of two criteria. One is how busy has the resort been over time during a certain period, and what is the uphill lift capacity of the mountain. And so that number really only changes when we're changing the uphill lift capacity. We're adding lifts, we're putting additional chairs on the cables. We're changing the way the mountain operates because we can't control this, right? We can't control how many people are going to Homewood. We can't control the weather, the economy, things like that. So unless they're adding lifts, unless they're increasing the uphill lift capacity, that number doesn't change.
Okay.
And they're not proposing that in 2011 and
Okay. So you're not imposing that limitation. So I guess, in terms of, my sense is there's some concern by locals in the Homewood area about being priced out of the market, and you kind of alluded to it. What's the matter?
I was just laughing, looking.
I think the whole Homewood neighborhood is here. Who's minding the shop? So I would think it would be equitable, people who make an investment by buying one of these private residential units could probably, be given some sort of accommodation with respect to the price of lift tickets. I think the community, needs to be afforded some sort of, local resident discount. And then people who come into the basin from elsewhere, would probably pay and should pay the highest price. I mean, people who are coming in, or adding to VMT unless they're coming by public transit. I think pricing seems to be a key issue. I mean, because without some limitations or some, benchmarks, theoretically, the local population could be priced out of the market. So I think that we need, in our discussion with the applicants, need to take that into serious consideration. Also, I'm wondering if the applicant would agree to include maybe a disclosure to the residential unit buyers about the public access commitments they've made. So that there isn't an issue, going forward that, the misconception that this is going to be up at some point, when all the units are sold, when all the improvements are made, when money from the public, to help subsidize the development and retire the debt, when all of that has taken place, that somehow, the hill is going to be closed, and that's another concern that we've all heard, to the general public. And I think it's important that anyone who buys a unit at Homewood, and if I were a residential home buyer at Homewood, I would want that disclosure to be made plain in the purchase documents. So that was just a recommendation, not only to provide the people of Homewood with some assurance, but also to protect the developer, from misunderstandings. The annual compliance reports, I appreciate that, and I am assuming, Ryan, that is anybody else going to participate in the collection of that data and the review of that data, or would that be part of the third-party auditor's responsibility? What did you have envisioned, Graham?
I think as a concept, Graham, say Michelle, I think as a concept, it could just be if we're going down the road of conditions in a permit that we have certain information that is reported to either the agency or a third party. That then
Okay.
helps uses that information to determine the compliance that they're maintaining this public access condition.
So that you'd have to determine how many members of the public are accessing the mountain on any given day. I mean, I think we need to develop some parameters, obviously, not make the reporting requirement so onerous that, it's impossible to comply with, but just to confirm that access is permitted and that the public is using the hill in concert with homeowners and visitors from outside the area. And then maybe that could be part of the annual audit, a review of those numbers and confirmation that they're accurate. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aldine. Any other comments or questions from other members? Ms. Gustafson?
I have a few. Obviously, I think we're here today with this turnout, incredible turnout, because of some of the comments that were made publicly by Discovery in different venues and the history of Discovery and the types of products they have provided in other locations, and the concern that that type of product here would over time eliminate public access. And so therefore, the concern of the public, number one is, there's other concerns, but number one is that public access component. And we as an agency, myself in a 42-year career in public service, I have not had to define this, right? Public access was public access. We all knew what it meant. In this, as staff has described, it is a very challenging thing for us to debate. And so I think some of the concerns I have heard about meeting with Keep Homewood Public and other members, is how do we determine reasonable pricing? Because the fear is that pricing will be what drives the public away, and that will be the gate that keeps the public from accessing the mountain. There's a real concern and fear and distrust about that. So I'm not sure how to establish what reasonable is and make it enforceable. But my question is, what kind of monitoring or penalties do we currently have as TRPA? And do we have any flexibility at changing? What kind of penalties do we have? And do we have any currently on the books, which I think is $5,000 a day? And do we have any opportunities to change or amend those and how we enforce that? Because I want to put assurance back in the public that these are meaningful penalties, whatever we arrive at language, that they can be levied, and how far can we go? Can you speak to that a bit? I should have warned you I'd ask you that
No, that's
question on
fine.
your first
That's
full
fine.
day by yourself on the job.
Fine. Yeah, you're right, Ms. Gustafson. It's I think it's 5,000 per day. We might have some leeway in the way if we draft language to sort of specify what a daily violation could be. So that's one way to sort of make those penalties more meaningful. There's, we're in the posture of having to bring a complaint. So there's also injunctive relief. We could seek, an injunction, something like that. But, I think in terms of putting something in the code that is, or I mean, putting something in a permit that is maybe more than what the code allows, might need to have a code amendment for something like that.
Okay. So good point for discussion later, but the 5,000 can be cumulative and can be daily. So if a whole ski season goes and there's no public access, that could be for every day of the ski season.
I think that's something we should look into and just
Just,
confirm.
I
but
want to,
that's-
I want
yeah.
to just confirm, how much, if it's 5,000 for the season, then, that's not much. If it's 5,000 daily, then that's obviously very significant to the applicant. On other enforcement, you talked about injunctive, can obviously certificates of, I'm more familiar with county protocol, certificates of occupancy can be withheld. We can do other things to find meaningful impact to the applicant. Are those available to TRPA? Sorry, I don't know this because we haven't done it.
Yeah, I think we need to, this is something that this is the kind of feedback we're looking for, but I mean, you're saying enforcement is a key piece. Penalties, injunction, the opportunity to revoke an approval or something like that, revoke a permit. But that's something we need to look further into about.
And they're operating of the
yeah.
ski area, right? Because ski areas are different than other things we do. We have a master plan for ski areas. And I don't know what we've done in other violations or if we've had anything. But again, trying to address the concern of the public that the ultimate goal is they believe, is to eliminate their use of the mountain. And I want to find meaningful ways in which we prevent that from ever happening. From this particular applicant or any future owner or operator of the mountain. Because that's also our fear, right? As we watch changing dynamics in and around the basin, ownerships change, people change, the people we believe or don't believe change. So making sure we have that.
Yeah, just a follow up, Paul Nielsen, TRPA. The key to a violation is how do you know it when you see it, right? How do you define what the violation is? How do you measure it? How do you disclose it? And how do you monitor it over time? So if we were ever to find ourselves in the position of recommending, say, a monetary penalty, we would want to be clear with the board on the definition of why we're making that recommendation. What line has been crossed? And so that's really what we're struggling with is how we define what that violation is and looks like clearly and understandably.
Yeah, constructive denial sounds great, but exactly when is it constructive denial, right?
Madam.
And if I
Mem-
just
oh,
let me, one more second, Julie, while, because I will lose my thought. You are younger, you can keep your thought. I agree with independent monitoring. I think we're at a place, unfortunately, of such distrust and I can't see our TRPA staff having somebody assigned out there to do that. So we have to find a monitoring mechanism, whatever we agree to, that has independent monitoring and is more frequent than a once a year audited report, because that's a long season of time for those that are distrustful. And again, we're in this situation. I wish we weren't here with this level of distress, but I think we have to address it head on. When we get to throughout the area, throughout the plan, the community enhancement plan, it talked about equality of access. So I think that's a good starting point for numbers. Equal, right? Equal to me is equal. And so now pricing is not equal, but access is equal in that mind. And then, how we determine pricing, I know, is something that is very challenging for government to determine what the private sector does. And I know there'll probably be different thoughts on that here at the table. But I think there's a reasonability based around the number of ski areas. We're blessed to have the largest number of downhill ski areas, I think, in North America, in and around this basin. And so we have a lot of data points to come up with what is reasonable in some level of pricing, I would think. So looking at that, independent monitoring, equal access, and then I certainly defer to my colleagues to weigh in more. Julie, I cut you off, so
Not at
correct
all.
me where I'm.
No,
where
no,
I'm-
I was just gonna add on to the enforcement piece, but no, I just very quickly, just a little more context, because I do think public access and the enforceability is the key. The compact gives TRPA that authority of the $5,000 per day per violation. How do we define that? We don't have enforcement powers, and we issue different kinds of permits than local governments do. So it is a little different. But we go to court. And then whenever we have these large projects, master plans, think of the long term, because nothing is static. Additional permits come down the line. And that also, there are opportunities to resolve issues that maybe weren't discovered at the time. But we want to go into this very thoughtfully, eyes wide open, to be as objective as we can, versus having to be subjective in how this gets enforced going forward.
One other question before I am done with my questions. You had asked for feedback on public access to what? And I was thinking about it driving over this morning. Again, I think about this project a lot, as you can imagine, with my inbox full. Thank you. I look at North Star, for instance, and on that mountain, there are some private facilities that certain members get to use and other members don't get to use. There's certain locker rooms at Palisades that only members get to use. So that is a model I'm familiar with at ski areas. And I don't think public access means to all the private investment that goes on the mountain. But there has to be a reasonable amount of that. And again, I go back to reasonable. How do we define it? How do we show it so that we're recognizing the private investment could have private clubs and private access points? Because let's face it, to make the kind of investment needed, they need to encourage people to purchase some of these units at very high prices. But what I've been used to at skiing at that mountain and having my kids ski at that mountain, doesn't include all those amenities at this point. So I don't know, unless I'm willing to pay a much higher price, that I should ever have access to their new investment, those things other than the lifts. So that, and I'm not quite clear what you're asking me for in that, but we can define it as we hear public comment too.
Just real quickly, Paul Nielsen, TRPA. So to get specific with this application, when you talk about access to what, I'll give you an example of what's proposed today, and you can think about it quantitatively. There are skier services spaces throughout the mountain. Most of those are at the north base. There's some at the top of the gondola, and there's a tiny little bit at the south base. Those spaces, those skier services where you go to warm up, get a hot dog, take your kids to thaw out, they're split up into two areas right now. One is for homeowners associations access. One is for the general public, you, me, everybody in this room. So they're proposing that today, and that division is about 2/3 to 1/3 split. So when you think about the spaces of the mountain, sort of getting to your point, Chairwoman Gustafson.
I'm not chair of this committee.
Yeah.
It was the board.
You'll always be chair to me, but I just want to get specific with this application. They are proposing that division of spaces, and it's a 2/3, 1/3 split.
Okay, and in that regard, I hear that, but again, as I reflect on the new private investment, that changes that dynamic. As long as I have access to the mountain and a place to warm up, do I have the right to demand access to a much more significant private investment? That is a challenge. I see, I was looking at more lift capacity being at an equal level. Not necessarily at all the amenities, because obviously I don't have the funds that maybe could buy memberships and other, types of passes at other mountains. So, yeah.
Yeah, Paul Nielsen, TRPA. no division on who can access the lifts at this point. That is not on the table.
Okay.
All lifts open to everyone, homeowners, public.
Thank you.
With that, committee members, any additional questions or comments? Before we go back to Ms. Aldine, is there anyone new with any new questions or comments before I allow other people a second bite at the apple?
No, just
Sandra?
really appreciate the comments that have been made already, and I agree with most of them. I do think we're asking the right questions, and I think, I've been trying to think about this a lot, and the lifts are my top priority. I mean, I think there's all these other aspects that I haven't thought about as much, but like, yeah, the equitable access to the lifts and the mountain, excuse me, is definitely top of mind. And it's helpful, I think, to like have the numbers and thinking about like, what is the maximum amount of people we'd see on the mountain? What does that translate to if we're seeing 1/3, 2/3 division? Can it like, is there the capacity to serve that many people if it's divided like that? And I mean, I also do appreciate, capitalism and needing to make profit and justify investments. So there's that, balance as well. One thing I was thinking about with the ticket pricing, this is, probably a longer conversation down the road, but having higher prices for folks coming in from outside of the basin. The only pause I have there is, I think about a friend who has an outdoors club at a public school in San Francisco with low-income kids that have never seen snow, and they come up to Tahoe, and I'd love for them to go to home, like a resort like Homewood, and not just go to like the Heavenlies and the North Stars. But if they're paying extra because they're coming from out of town, that might make it harder for them to do that. So that was the only thing I was thinking about, is just trying to be sure that we're being mindful of the lower income folks that are coming in from outside of the basin as well. But yeah, so appreciate the questions, and I'm really excited to hear from the public. And I will also apologize in advance. It's my mom's birthday and I have to leave early to go do that, but I'm going to call in on the phone and listen to it as long as I can. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Ms. Lamer. Is there any, since there's only two other people that haven't asked questions, Mr. Keith Caffer, would you like to ask anything at this point in time before we go back to Ms. Aldine?
Yeah, thank you. Probably to Paul. So the applicants could build what was approved in 2011, amended in 14, right?
Correct.
All of this discussion about how sort of TRPA controls access is new to the conversations. It was not included within those original discussions, right?
Correct.
You said there's 200 acres that's on the mountain that's public, that's US Forest Service?
Correct.
Yeah, where is that on the mountain?
It's above the, basically it's above the quail face. So if you're looking at the mountain, it's to the upper left. It's that steep sort of bowl above the lake.
James always has a map. Which part of that? Oh.
So that is under special use permit from the Forest Service.
Okay. I think some of the questions that we're getting to, right? Like we've never had to define public access for private property before as government, right? That's not what we tend to do. So I think it's some of the problems that we're going to be running into are based on that nature, that we're sort of wading into territory that we don't traditionally wade into. And I think, all of the correspondence I've been getting from community members right now, they're asking for, I think, what they're calling a hard reset, starting the process over. I don't think that's feasible, because they could just go build what they want, what they're entitled for right now. It would be a less accessible gondola and maybe not as good sight lines. But I'm curious to hear what the sort of tactile concerns are when we hear public comment, and if they can be addressed by some of the issues we're talking about. We want to say equal access, and equal means anybody can buy a $700 lift ticket, then is that really equal access? So I look forward to hearing comment. I too have to step out. I apologize. I'm going to call in and listen. And I look forward to trying to get some specifics about what we can probably address as a body versus what we can't. Thank you.
Since my question was kind of on those lines with former colleague of mine, Senator Keith Caffer, in the old days. in that respect, I was looking at the Homewood Mountains Meadow LLC, 747.45 private acres, the Homewood Village Resorts, 89.52. Then you're saying they have 200 acres that they'll have on the Lake Tahoe Basin Management using through a permit, or is that a lease?
It's a special use permit.
Okay, so it's a special use permit. If you could potentially get those to the board members so we could read what those special permit use conditions are. I'm familiar with Recreation and Public Purpose Act leases, how they vary from cattlemen who may have cattle on a lease. So I'd appreciate getting that information if we could to
Yeah,
all
my
of the board
understanding
members.
is it
so I could-
allows for the operation of the lift on that part of the mountain. And then the second permit they have is for some backcountry operations where snowcats take people into the backcountry, but I will get those permits.
Really appreciate that. Devil's always in the detail. And then they're not going to use any of the California deer hunt zone that's directly next to them or the Tahoe City PUD, I assume.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. With that, additional questions, Ms. Aldine, you had more follow-up?
Thank you. Yes. Along those same lines, it would be helpful to know, what the conditions are of the permit with the Forest Service, only that public lands are generally accessible to anyone. But you have to be able to get to those public lands in order to use them. And I presume that there is no access easement in favor of the public to access this particular acreage.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, well, that's a
Yeah.
question. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
public lands, as we all know, are accessible to the public. And so if you don't have a means of accessing, not that you would necessarily want to recreate on that acreage, but if you wanted to hike it, you're going to end up trespassing over private property to get to it potentially. And so I'm just wondering if any thought when that lease was originally generated by the Forest Service in favor of Homewood, if access from Homewood to that area was ever given any consideration. And then, I think I'm hoping that we can get past this impasse. And if so, it might be nice to have a standing committee consisting of an HOA representative, the developer or the operator, and a member of the Homewood community who would meet on a regular basis, to review the operations, to air any concerns that they might have, to open a window of communication between Homewood and the public, so that concerns and problems can be aired and maybe addressed, in a more, cooperative manner. And that's just something going forward I would offer as a suggestion that might be worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aldine. Is any additional questions, or comments?
I'll make this quick.
Ms. Gustafson?
I just wanted to be clear that the CEP project did give them enhancements to some commodities that they were able to build. And that came with that public access statements and the community enhancement statement. So I just wanted to make sure you were clear on that with the CEP project. Thank you.
Ms.
Shelley
Aldine?
Aldine, for the record, I'm gonna go here. I wasn't thinking of going here, and this is merely a suggestion. I mean, if you look at Homewood when it was operating, and it hasn't operated, I guess, for a couple of seasons. It has been open. Okay. So, okay. I guess the consensus is yes, it has been. That's how often I'm on the West Shore. Okay, well, if we can define the areas that have historically been open to the public. And I hesitate to mention this as an alternative. If, the developers would impose a public access easement that would be on record, encumbrance on the property. And I don't know that that's something that they would even entertain, but I'm going to suggest that. So the areas that have historically been accessible to the public, the general public, would continue to be accessible. And this would be a recorded easement against the property and enforceable. So I just offer that up as a suggestion.
Thank you, Ms. Aldine. In that vein, if I could please ask TRPA staff maybe to reach out to some of the other ski resorts, because while they are completely on public land, when the wind conditions do not prevail, the gondola does not run. It's an issue of safety. There are other parameters in there within their lease, what times are open, what times are not. During the times of their lease, what rights do they have to restrict utilization, public access on those type of resorts or not? You know, obviously you can't use a gondola, but I'm curious. I don't know, can a person literally start at the base of Heavenly and just sidewalk up the thing and go skiing, or is it a prohibition requiring that they have to have a ticket? I really have no idea. And I'd like to know that information as I start trying to weigh all this discussion. With that though, are there any other questions or comments from the board at this time? With that, if you look at the agenda, the way it was read and the way it's listed, it states that for items that are not agendized, that are only informational, we'll hear from the public comment during the public comment period at the end. So unfortunately, that means we have to get through upcoming topics. However, I'm going to take the chair's prerogative until the attorney tells me I have to go to, you know, where, that the general public is at the end, yet in that respect, the representative of the Keep Homewood Public organization is an organization and therefore should be given their time now. With that, Mr. Ed DeWitt, are you here? No clapping, please. And here's why. It's a form of speech. I don't want anyone ever to be shut down. I have had to be in committees to debate the death penalty. And I'm a stickler. Don't do it. No audience participation, hooping and hollering, either way. It's just not right to me. We're here to respect one another and hear everybody's viewpoint. And I want that today. But with that being said, Ed DeVita,
Oh,
are you here?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Keep Homewood Public's, not the project applicant, but the representative who's
Oh,
speaking
the
for,
representative, I
for Keep
apologize.
Homewood Public. If you would like to come up to the podium, please do so, and you have 5 minutes.
And just for everybody's education, Maria, I am sorry I butchered your name earlier, and for everyone else, get ready, I'll butcher yours too. Sorry. Please present.
Now, oh, loud. Mr. Chairman, thanks for that consideration. We really appreciate it. Also wanted to congratulate TRPA for the LTRA being approved by Congress. That is a big deal, and all of us in the Tahoe Basin understand how big that is. So thanks for doing it. My name is Kathy Astromoff. I am speaking for Keep Homewood Public. I reside in Santa Cruz County, and my multi-generational family cabin is in Chamberlains. We want continued public recreational access to Homewood Mountain while unlocking the redevelopment promised in the 2011 master plan. Up until this point, in the spirit of reasonable compromise with the developers, we have said that members could join us on this public hill, provided non-members get the same privileges as members and guaranteed capacity on the hill. We still hold out hope for that outcome. As recently as a couple of weeks ago, we've met with the developers' representatives, and we've had multiple conversations over 18 months. Specifically, most recently, over the public access definition that you just saw. The public access definition that you saw today has multiple loopholes in it that would enable the developers to privatize the day after they get their approvals. I have identified those loopholes and sent them to Paul and staff. That definition also has not changed materially since the first time we saw a version of that definition some months ago. We no longer believe that the developers are negotiating in good faith, either with us or with TRPA. So we're here today with a new ask, a hard reset. TRPA must use your existing land use planning authority to reject this application outright. Please send the developers back to square one. Make sure Discovery Land Company and JMA Ventures and Mahari Hospitality are all hear your unambiguous message. Homewood is a public recreational mountain, and that TRPA will use all of its powers to ensure that it stays that way. In support of that ask, you've received a letter from our attorneys, Shute Mihaly Weinberger, outlining the legal bases for keeping Homewood public. Please read it in its entirety if you haven't read it already. It came in yesterday. But we're not going to review those here. Today, instead, you're going to hear from people who love Homewood Mountain, both in the room and online, about their concerns. You'll hear evidence that the developers continue to intend to privatize after receiving approvals. You'll hear why we think the developers are not negotiating in good faith. You'll hear how developers are actively disrespecting today, not only our community, but also other communities around the world in which they operate. And you'll also hear how both the application and the staff report do not go far enough to adequately protect public access, as staff did mention here. Most of all, you'll hear how we all just love Homewood Mountain. I learned to ski there, my kids learned to ski there, my nieces and nephews learned to ski there. And we want not only our own children and grandchildren, us lucky people who get to be there today, we want everyone's children and grandchildren to learn to love this special place as much as we do. That deep love of place from everyone who lives in or visits that place is the real foundation of all successful environmental protection work. Please join us in our deep love for Homewood Mountain by rejecting outright this flawed application and denying all future efforts to privatize it. Thank you.
I appreciate that. That was the main presenter for Keep Homewood Public. Right now, I have to go through the protocol and get through the rest of the agenda. Otherwise, I'm in violation of Nevada open meeting law, which I know the AG and the Secretary of State, and sometimes we don't agree, so they might want to come after me. With that, we will then have to close down this informational portion, and now we will move on to the next section, which is upcoming topics. That brings us to agenda item 4. As a reminder to the public, since this item is information only, members to the public are welcome to comment at the final public comment item. Mr. Hester?
I'll make this very quick, Mr. Chairman. Potentially next month, you could have some more hearing on this issue. That's the only thing we have on the schedule for next month. For November, potentially we have scheduled the Tahoe Valley area plan and the TVAP and TCAP area plan amendments and from Douglas County. And we have City of South Lake Tahoe amendments. We do not have a health project schedule, just to be clear. And so that's it for now. And that's the end of that item.
Thank you, Mr. Hester. With that, committee members, do you have any specific questions or comments at this time? Seeing none?
Mr. Chair, may I just add on to one final item with Mr. Hester's report? I wanted to make sure the public was aware because of the way our public notice requirements go in terms of timing. Because we're already at the notice point for next month's Regional Planning Committee meeting, you will see a notice for possible action. That doesn't mean the board will be taking any action, but just in case, after we go back and hear from the public, if there's some action to be taken, we didn't want to miss that noticing opportunity. So that happens very routinely that we notice it and then action isn't taken, but didn't want any confusion. We are not clear when the board will be acting on this. But notice requirements are like a month in advance. So just wanted to make sure there was no confusion there. Thank you.
Okay, committee members, did that stir any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, any further comments from the committee, then we can move on to the agenda as that item was informational only. Committee member comments. We're now to agenda item number 5. That being said, committee members, do you have any questions or comments? Seeing none, that brings us to the exciting number 6, public interest comments. Our final matter of business is our general public comment period. Any member of the public wishing to address the Regional Planning Committee or on any item listed or not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Individuals or groups who have already commented on items listed on the agenda are not permitted to comment on that same topic. The Regional Planning Committee is prohibited by law from taking immediate action or by discussing issues raised by the public during this public comment period. Finally, comments must relate to matters within the jurisdiction of the agency. If any member of the public who wishes to speak at this time says to raise your hand, but through this, we've developed a list and we're going to call up people in tranches per se in order to, so please listen for your name and realize you're going to go next. They'll call out their name. That we already have your spelling. So we'll be able to give that to the press for whoever who wants accurate spelling. If you don't sign up and you speak later, we're going to have to ask you to spell your name like you're back in the old days in grade school. With that, I believe the next person we have at this point in time would be Doug Estill, and then Candace Wilmuth, and then Barbara Millsapple. So Doug, are you here by chance? Thank you, sir.
Hi, guys.
May I
Thank-
recommend, Mr. Chair, just a point of order, Julie Reagan, TRPA. If the next couple of folks could just queue up, that would be great. And then we can just keep moving. Thank you so much.
My name is Doug Estelle. I am a retired firefighter. I live in Tahoma, and my grandkids would be fourth generation skiers at Homewood. So I am here to strongly urge a hard reset of the Homewood project. TRPA requires the developers submit evidence of fire department pre-approval of the project. This has never been completed and is missing from the application. Earlier this year, in a meeting at the West Shore Cafe, the developers told the community that they were close to an agreement, but were not willing to fund items in the 2014 evacuation life safety plan. To this day, there is no agreement in place. You guys are the linchpin to this being a community enhancement project or a community destruction project. Please think carefully.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to Candace Wilmuth.
Hello, my name's Candace Wilmuth, and I am a full-time resident of the West Shore in El Dorado County. I am here to strongly urge the hard reset of the Homewood project. TRPA must reject the application outright as it is incomplete because it only uses user classes that refer to residents and visitors. The developers previously told the community that they would sell both on-site and off-site memberships. If on-site members are, quote, residents and off-site members or guests of members are, quote, visitors, then the developers could fill up the ski hill without admitting a single person of the general public. In order to be complete, the application must have a robust public access definition, including the enforceable specifics about public access. I will read Keep Homewood Public's recommended definition for public access and submit it to record. Homewood Mountain Resort will remain a key gathering center for Lake Tahoe's West Shore and will maintain its heritage as a ski resort that can be enjoyed equally by local residents and visitors. To that end, and to ensure a fair share of the region's capacity for outdoor recreation is available to the general public, Homewood Mountain Resort will provide recreational access to the general public for a fee that is reasonable relative to Tahoe Basin resorts with similar terrain, or for no fee on a daily basis. For the purpose of this master plan, general public means any visitor who is not an owner, shareholder, resident, member, or family member or guest of any resident, member, owner, or shareholder of Homewood Mountain Resort and any of its affiliates. Visitors include ski lift pass holders, hikers, cyclists, and customers of resort retail establishments. The general public will have year-round access to Homewood Mountain Resort's retail establishments and recreation facilities, including ski facilities and other outdoor recreation amenities on equal footing to any resort owner, shareholder, resident, member, family member, or guest of any resident, member, owner, or shareholder, including but not limited to access to the same ski runs, ski lifts, hiking trails, restrooms, and days and hours of operation. TRPA, please do the right thing and reject this flawed, incomplete application. Thank you. And I'll submit that application to public record, or that definition to public record.
Thank you, Candace. Now we're going to have Barbara Millsapple, then after that, Kathleen Anise, Ted Peterson, and then Randy Boteller. Sorry. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Barbara Millslegel. I'm a full-time resident on the West Shore. My husband and I are season pass holders at Homewood and wonder where we will have to drive to ski this year. I'm also an avid golfer and currently on the Northern California Golf Course Rating Committee. This position brings awareness to the privatization of Cordoval Golf Course in Santa Clara County. I'm here to strongly urge a hard reset of the Homewood project. I am very concerned that Discovery and JMA intend to exclude the public as they have at all of their other properties. Discovery only develops hyper-private, hyper-exclusive resorts. They allow public access only when the law or permit conditions require, and even then they succeed in whittling away some of those protections. A prime example is their Cordoval Golf Resort in Santa Clara County that I've played a number of times. Cordoval opened in 1999 under a 1996 use permit restriction, guaranteeing 60% of the rounds for the public. After opening, Discovery began restricting availability of public rounds The public complained. Santa Clara County tried to enforce the 60% for public, and Discovery fought back. In the end, Santa Clara County caved, allowing 60% of the rounds available for public requirement to be whittled down to an occasional charity tournament. Today, the general public really has no access to Coeur d'Alene, and it is promoted as members only. We can't let this happen to Homewood. Please do the right thing and send the developers back to square one. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen? And then after that, Ted Peterson.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Anise, and I have read every word of the master plan, the EIR, the EIS, the CEP documentation, public comments submitted to TRPA, and all the relevant TRPA codes and Placer County permit documentation. I do not kid you on that. It seems rather clear to me that recreational land is protected by TRPA's recreational land regulations and environmental thresholds. As a condition of its community enhancement program origins, the Homewood Mountain Resort Ski Area Master Plan required the filing of recreational deed restriction that preserves the recreational zoning of the ski area in perpetuity. This was to be filed prior to any groundbreaking, but it was not done so prior to Fawn Street breaking ground, as its permit was issued in error. I strongly urge the TRPA to reject the application as it is written, as it does not uphold the Code of Ordinance and recreational threshold goals, ensuring a fair share of use of recreational land is available to the general public. This application, as it is written, would displace thousands of skiers and their vehicles to other already highly impacted ski areas. This significant impact is briefly touched upon in a single sentence, admitting a predicted reduction in day skiers replaced by Homewood Resort residents, their members, their guests. This is page 11-63 as part of the Transportation Impact Report. Although the developers willingly purchased recreational land and spent 4 years developing a master plan adhering to TRPA's regulations that assumed and ensured public access, the same developer and its international partners are now attempting to slyly revise and insert new language that will slowly, but most assuredly, reduce public access and enjoyment of recreational land in favor of exclusive residential development. The loss of Homewood Resort as a public ski area was required to be reviewed within the EIR as a potential alternative, the impacts for which no mitigation measures could be identified, as it represents the recreational carrying capacity for the entire West Shore, from the Green Forest Gate at Emerald Bay through Tahoe City and to the North Shore. As the application stands today in its roughly revised form, the TRPA environmental thresholds are not being protected, and a multi-million-dollar developer or more should not be allowed to sidestep regulations that are in Tahoe's best interest. Thank you.
Thank you. For that, Ted Peterson.
He's also a trained licensed architect. Thank you for this time today. My name's Ted Peterson. We have a cabin at the base of the ski hill, second over from the Madden chair. That's family cabin. My brother and I share ownership. He owns 2/3. I have 1/3. Mom liked him best. And then my wife and I have a cabin. It's the fourth cabin over. What I would like to touch base a little bit on it, and you're hearing a lot about the CEP designation. I have the history of having attended all the meetings back in 2008 through 2011, and even went to Sacramento when the hearing of the Friends of the West Shore and JMA were being challenged in court in Sacramento in 2014. And when you roll that back, Mr. Chapman came to these meetings and he frequently said, if I can't have the project, I have to close the project. I can't have, and this was not a hollow point. This was, I have to have this for the success of the future of this project. And the community showed up like this and they embraced it. And it's one of those situations we're all at now. And I think there's a common senseness that we're all sharing when we're looking at this going, what, public access? What, why not? Right? It's always been part of it. So when I'm standing here today and thinking back to Art Chapman, I think it's fair to consider it seriously what he asked for. which was to close them out if he can't have his project. If we can't be part of the project, it's okay. Tell him, but he has to go back and start over. You can't slide this forward and slide this in now and take the CEP benefits. It's a very smart business decision. And I don't default. Mr. DeVita's a good gentleman. I've heard him speak a number of times, but it's the business person's intention to have the maximum flexibility of the project. I've been in real estate for 40 years. I've been in commercial shopping centers. So when I'm listening to it, I don't deny his intention. It's just you have the responsibility to keep order to the situation for our community. So the same folks that supported it are the same folks saying, we don't want to close it, but it's okay if he closes it because we'll get over that because we'll see something right done for the community. So keep the word community in your mind, but the enhancements aren't happening. And when I'm going through this process right now in see if I can punch up for you the my morning's hearings of this project is I got we have trucks coming down the road every day. And the construction impact on the neighbors, if it gets done and he privatizes that isn't right. Meaning we live through the construction period and then it's private. Wrong. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ted. With that, we have Randy. And then after that, we have Dan Copenhagen.
Okay, thank you. My name is Randy Boatler. I'm a homeowner on the West Shore and I ski at Homewood. I'm here to strongly urge a hard reset of the Homewood project. TRPA must reject the application outright because it does not guarantee public access. Public access was the foundation of the master plan as a community enhancement project. If the developers are allowed to privatize after building the resort, they will have received all of the benefits of being a community enhancement project, but without delivering any of the on the obligations for it. What's the point of a community enhancement project that doesn't actually enhance the community and that the community is not allowed to use? It makes no sense. The developers insisted that they have the CEPs to make the project economically viable. The TRPA governing board conferred community enhancement project status on the Homewood project when the master plan was approved. In return, the developers have the obligation to guarantee public access throughout the life of the project in order to earn and keep earning those community enhancement project benefits. However, the developers have not guaranteed public access in their application, and therefore they have violated the master plan agreement under which the CEPs were awarded. Please, please do the right thing and reject this application outright. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And then we have Gail Pagato.
Hi, my name is Dan Copenhagen, part of KHP. Our family has a home just south of Homewood in Rubicon Bay. And I've been hiking and skiing Homewood Mountain for about 56 years. We love the place. As we've discussed previously, we've heard this before, TRPA must reject the application outright. Doesn't guarantee public access, and the developers are not working in good faith. They clearly intend to take Homewood private. Here is a specific example of that. JMA and the developers maintain right now an active SEC filing offering memberships to Homewood Club for $200,000 each. I will submit this for the record. Here is the SEC form It's a notice of exempt offering of securities to be issued by Homewood Club LLC, incorporated in 2022, with the type of securities offered described as, quote, recreational memberships at a minimum of $200,000 per outside investor, end quote. Essentially, this is the first step to selling equity memberships for a private club. So when the developer says anyone, quote, anyone can ski at Homewood, end quote, what they really mean is anyone with a whole lot of money. This is not the general public. They cannot take a CEP, which is inherently 100% public, and turn it into an ultra-private playground. Please do the right thing and reject this application outright. Thank you for your time. Yes.
I have it over here, ma'am, at the end of the day, so that way you have all the spelling so we can get as much testimony in as time. If their name is not on there, I will ask them to spell it for you. That being said, we're going to go next to Gail Pagato, then we're going to go to Teresa McNamara.
Hi there. My name's Gail Pagato, and I am a full-time resident of Tahoe Pines on the West Shore. I live there with my 2 young children and husband, and Homewood Mountain is so incredibly important to us. It's where we meet classmates and friends every day of the weekend. It's where we ski with our neighbors, our family, our friends. It's where we spend the entirety of our winter season. I'm here to urge a hard reset of the Homewood project. TRPA must reject the application outright because it is no longer a community enhancement project. The developers are not working in good faith. I want to flag a specific example for the board today. This March, the managing partner of Homewood investor Mohari Hospitality told a real estate conference that they were involved in privatizing Homewood. Quote, "We are involved in a project in Tahoe where we are privatizing a ski mountain with Discovery Land and a US-based partner of ours, JMA Ventures. If you've heard of Yellowstone Club, which is a Discovery Land project, think of it as a mini version of that in Lake Tahoe," end quote. While the partner wrote TRPA apologizing for his, quote, misstatement, end quote, he did apologize, but he did not explicitly deny that the developers intend to privatize. You can understand our community's distrust. With that, we believe strongly that the developers still want to privatize. Please do the right thing and reject this application outright. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. We'll now go to Teresa McNamara, then to Kevin Foster.
Hello, my name is Teresa McNamara. I'm a full-time resident of Homewood and have lived at the South Bay side of Homewood Mountain Resort for over 30 years. In fact, we purchased our home due to the proximity to the place we love to ski, Homewood. Our family has been skiing with season passes at Homewood for over 35 years, and our children and grandchildren have all learned to ski at Homewood, which they lovingly refer to as their backyard. I am here today to strongly urge a hard reset of the Homewood project. I am asking TRPA to reject the application as presented and written because it does not guarantee public access to skiing and hiking. The developers are not operating in good faith. In fact, they are running Homewood Mountain Resort into the ground to discourage the public from using it and claim they cannot make any money with an open public ski area. Since the 2011 approval of the master plan, they have had 13 years to upgrade the resort infrastructure and facilities. Instead, they have chosen to let the resort languish. The last decade has also had the most financially favorable climate for development, yet in spite of having approval in 2011, they have chosen to do nothing. The 2011 master plan promised a mid-mountain lodge with food services and restroom facilities. Instead, there is an oversized tent serving cold sandwiches and a pit-style toilet. The base lodge is old and run down. The Ellis chair which breaks down almost every year, was installed in 1977. The normal usable lifespan ended in 2017. There has been no effort to upgrade either of these. It seems clear that the owners of Homewood Mountain Resort have intended all along to run Homewood into the ground in order to justify a private development. It is their business, and they can choose to operate the ski resort as they see fit. But this does not allow them to take the original master plan and community enhancement project plan that we all agreed upon and turn it into a private resort. Please do the right thing by listening to the community and adhering to the 2011 master plan guidelines and the community enhancement plan. Please reject this application as it has been submitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. With that, we'll go to Kevin Foster, then Victoria Gustafson. Sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Foster. I'm a resident of Homewood. I've skied at Homewood and Tahoe Ski Bowl previously since about 1975. I'm very concerned about I really demand a hard reset as well. I'm very concerned about Discovery and JMA excluding the public. You voiced some of the concerns. We've shared those with you previously, so you understand those, but we're really fearful they're very real. I agree totally with the previous speaker and how they've run the business over the last decade. But the latest public access definition that TRPA staff presented today came from the developers. It's not substantially changed over the past several iterations, despite our desire to help them write something that might work for everybody. Contains multiple loopholes that would enable the developers to privatize. Discovery has a history through their other projects of taking advantage of every loophole and plenty of history to say they'll do it again. Those have been shared with you today as well. I was in favor of the 2011 approvals, still favor development that's approved with a public benefit. I hope you'll stick up for the residents of Tahoe who will be forever burdened with this development rather than the pocketbooks of the developers. Please tell the developers to stop wasting our time with bad faith definitions that do not deliver public access the way they're obligated to do. If they have nothing to hide, why wouldn't they agree with some enforceable criteria? An approval needs to have legally enforceable numbers that ensure ongoing access. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I will now move on to Victoria, then after that, Karen Flynn.
Hi, Victoria Gustafson, no relation to Cindy, but I do get asked that question a lot. So I'm here to urge a hard reset on the project. The developers clearly intend to take the resort private. Another example, when asked what prevents the developers from privatizing in the future, both JMA and Discovery answered, quote, nothing, end quote. Moonshine Inc. in 2022 asked what assurance the community has that the future of Homewood won't become completely private. Art Chapman of JMA replied, no assurance at all. We're going into this new model because the old model didn't work. Discovery representative also said as much in the meeting with Homewood HOA on March 2024. Clearly, the developers think they can privatize based on current approvals. Please do the right thing and reject it. I've been skiing at Homewood for 25 years. I live in Tahoma. I've worked for them for 10 years in the past. It's a great mountain. I was part of the original creation of the master plan and we worked together. We had lots of concessions and now they're just not being honest. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to Karen Flynn. Thank you, Victoria, and then to Rob May.
Good afternoon. My name is Karen Flynn, and I'm here today to share that the Flynns have been the next door neighbor of Tahoe Ski Bowl and Homewood for over 50 years. We're next door neighbor on the south base, Tahoe Ski Bowl, Chamberlain's lot number 77. And 4 generations of our family has learned to ski at the ski area and has enjoyed it. And we really hope the tradition can continue. I hope that Tahoe Ski Bowl, excuse me, Homewood, that shows you how old I am. Homewood will continue to be open to the public. So future generations will thrive there like the current ones, not only for our family, but all the members in the community. Back in 2011, when the master plan was approved, our family digested that change was coming. And my parents said that they were happy the ski area would be freshened up, and they were thankful that a building wouldn't be placed in back of the Flynn home, which we are the next door neighbor of 50 years. So I fast forward to today, and I'm concerned about paragraph in the project narrative and comparison that includes the south base will remain consistent with the approved master plan scale, use, and layout with a reduction and enlargement of total residential units and slight repositioning of buildings. This repositioning will provide a better buffer between existing neighbors and the new housing. Well, that's not true for this existing neighbor. Renderings now show a 5,000 plus square foot structure positioned 100 to 120 of my feet away from the back of our property line. And our house is set back on our parcel. So this is very close. There is no buffer. I brought a picture of what the family sees now to validate what I'm saying. There's a tree in this picture where the structure will be. So this is significant. If built, this would adversely and permanently alter the character of the home and the experiences of those who live in it forever. Respectfully, in this case, slight is not right. I understand more phase 2 is to occur in the future. And I'm putting this on the radar now as I fear that I may be told later this has already been approved in the amendment. I encourage Tahoe Regional Planning Agency not to approve the amendment change from the master plan that would reposition a structure further north to behind the Flynn House, lot 77. I support keeping Homewood open to the public for the community to continue to enjoy and their families to thrive there. And I hope that KHP comments will be taken seriously because there are a lot of good ones. So I want to thank you, folks, for providing this opportunity to speak up and for your support.
Thank you, Karen.
Next
You've hit your
door
time a
neighbor.
while ago, but I let you try to finish your statement. Thank you kindly. With that, we have Rob May and then Susan and Dick Holm.
Hi, my name's Rob May. I'm a longtime resident of the West Shore, and I've been skiing Homewood and Tahoe Ski Bowl for 60 years, so it means a lot to me. I'm here to strongly urge a hard reset of the Homewood project. TRPA must reject the application outright because the developers clearly intend to pursue a private resort. They sell Homewood as an exclusive private resort. Here's how Discovery described the project on their website. Quote, mountain on one side, lake on the other. Homewood Mountain and the Lake Club is nestled on the west shore of Lake Tahoe, a quiet, secluded community that is more than just a destination, it's a state of mind, end quote. I have 6 copies from their website, printed from their website, that talk about their development of private residential communities and resorts with a world-renowned portfolio. I implore, please do the right thing and reject this application outright. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
And I'll give these.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to Susan and Dick Holm. Susan first, obviously. Ladies first.
Hi, my name is Susan Holm, and I live full-time in Homewood, which is why I care so much about keeping Homewood Resort public. Homewood Resort is the heart of the West Shore. and it supports many businesses in addition to being a beloved tradition for so many community members whose families for generations have learned to ski there and have made many family memories there. Our community is firmly behind the 2011 master plan with the appropriate public access language added. If the TRPA allows this development to go through without that agreed upon public language, we will in effect, or you will in effect, pluck the heart out of our community and hand it wrapped in a bow to an elite group of wealthy people to have as their personal winter playground. There will be no turning back if the privatization of the resort harms the businesses and community as we all believe it would, because clearly this elite group of people would have no reason to leave the resort, as all of their needs will be met on site and because the people that Discovery caters to, high-profile celebrities from sports, film, and business, want the exclusivity and privacy Discovery provides at all of their other developments. This one would be no exception. The businesses along the West Shore simply cannot survive on a few summer months, so they will either shut down altogether or close down in the winter, making the West Shore a ghost town. This will depress the community, both the full-time residents and those with second homes. Winter ski renters will eventually decide to rent homes closer to Palisades or other public ski resorts rather than adding an hour or more each way to get to a public ski resort from a Homewood ski rental. The owners of the ski rentals will suffer for it, and so will the full-time residents who live there and ski in the winter. They will have no choice but to drive to another ski resort. In fact, the traffic on Highway 89 will increase even more because the community will have to drive to Tahoe City for nearly all of their needs. Please consider very carefully the lack of transparency being exhibited by JMA and Discovery. Please consider very carefully how a decision to trust their public statements without requiring them to put it in writing will give them the loopholes they need to turn the resort private. And please consider very carefully how permanent your decision will be to the entire West Shore of Lake Tahoe. I am asking also for a hard reset, and I think you should reject this application outright. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And I'll go to Dick Holm, and then after that, we have Nancy Martin.
Hi, my name is Dick Holm, and I want to thank you for listening to Keep Homewood Public and the community of the West Shore. I live full-time in Homewood with my wife, Susan, and I care, that's the reason I care so much about the project at Homewood. As a retired developer, I understand the requirement of complying with development conditions. A key condition for the approval in 2011 of Homewood Master Plan was that the ski mountain would remain public. In fact, keeping the ski hill public along with several other amenities were considered to be a community enhancement project and were the key reason that JMA received concessions for the application in 2011. Now, 13 years later, with the ski resort allowed to dilapidate during the time, JMA is claiming the resort loses money. They claim it must go private to survive. Well, let's be perfectly clear. This project has turned from a community enhancement project to an exclusive real estate development with a ski mountain as a hook for the buyers. It's really is a real estate development with a ski mountain. This in no way maps to the original master plan, nor are these the minor changes that they claim allows them to stick with the original master plan. The TRPA should reject this application outright. The developer should be required to reapply with a proposal for a private exclusive real estate development. They really want to build and go through the process from the beginning and do a reset. Now, there are a couple other things. In 2011, there was no affordable housing issue. In 2024, now there's a affordable housing requirement. So if you do a hard reset, they have to go back and they have to include the affordable housing requirement. If you've tried to hire a plumber, an electrician, or a carpenter on the West Shore, try it and see what you're paying for it. So I think that's a pretty important point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dick. We'll now go to Nancy Martin and then Dan Martin.
Hi, my name is Nancy Martin, and I'm a homeowner in Tahoe Pines for the past 60 years. I've been a season pass holder at Homewood since the early 60s when it first opened, and I've taught my children, grandchildren, and friends to ski there. I also worked at Homewood for about 7 years as a ski instructor in the early 70s. It's home to me. Homewood Ski Area is an integral part of our community, not only to us, but the businesses that serve our community. I'm very concerned that JMA and Discovery are intending to exclude the public from Homewood Ski Area. In a November 8th, 2022 letter to the TRPA, JMA, and this is quoted, "We are planning a new legacy family club concept where community members could purchase memberships for their families that would permit their parents, children, and grandchildren the opportunity to ski at Homewood during their lifetime," end quote. We think the developers still want to privatize based on this. Please do the right thing and reject the application.
Thank you. With that, we will go to Dan Martin.
Mr. Chair. And I just want to apologize to the public. I'm supposed to be at a meeting on North Shore at 6. So I am going to be joining on phone. Thank you so much for being here, and you know where to reach me. So.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to Dan Martin, then
Oh,
Eric
okay.
Beachenhauer.
Thank you all for having us here today and listening to our concerns. It's really important that we know that you're listening to our concerns. I will make mine very short because my wife hit all the salient points. We own a home in Tahoe Pines. We ski at Homewood. We took our kids there. We take our grandkids there. It's really important. And the most important thing to me is to be able to have the assurance that Homewood can remain public access, can have all the private club here and anywhere they want on the mountain, but the public should still be allowed to have access to the mountain. And my one caveat is I don't believe these membership agreements really equate or are equal to public access. They're very expensive. Most of the public probably wouldn't be able to afford, $200,000-$300,000 for a membership. So please take those things into consideration. Everybody here that has had the time to speak, I agree that those comments and those points need to be taken into your consideration. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you for that, Dan. We're now looking for Eric Beachenhauer, then Hannah Glass. And remember, if everybody, if you could come forward and maybe just one or two in a line if I'm calling your names, so that way we can proceed. Eric?
Good evening. My name is Eric Beckenhauer. My family has owned a home near Homewood for 35 years. And like so many others in this room and on Zoom and up and down the West Shore, Homewood is where I learned to ski. Many of my most treasured Tahoe memories were made up on that mountain. And, I hope that generations to come will be able to say the same thing. But my fear is that they won't if what seem like the developers' plans to privatize are allowed to go forward, or really if they get any wiggle room to allow that to happen. If you look around our community, you won't see a place dominated by multi-million-dollar mansions. Sure, there are some of those, but I think you'll find an area that's a lot more diverse. In my neighborhood, there are nurses, tradespeople, firefighters, sheriff's deputies, retirees, not folks that have any hope of, joining a super exclusive enclave for the ultra rich. And frankly, I'm not sure if pressed, many of them would want to. It's not really fitting with the community feel that I think makes so many of us love the West Shore. I'm not opposed to development at Homewood. I don't think any or many people in this room are. I support the 2011 master plan. I look forward to improvements at the resort. But when the developers sought community support back in 2011, there was no inkling that public access would be removed. In fact, it was just the opposite. The master plan touted its public engagement process, and it was, of course, approved as a community enhancement project. And in exchange for those promises, the developers got valuable benefits, including building variances. And, you know, call me a cynic, but it seems to me that now it's pretty clear that plans have changed and that there's a strong desire to privatize. And while vague claims have been made that some form of public access will be preserved, it doesn't seem to me like there are enforceable specifics, certainly nothing in writing to make that happen. And I think that's really what's most key. You know, it's hard to escape the conclusion that they're trying to slip through this amendment process without any enforceable specifics for public access, so that they would be free to privatize later if they're given any of that wiggle room. So I would urge you to reject the application as it stands now, unless it's unambiguous that those enforceable specifics are in place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eric. Now to Hannah Glass.
Hi there, my name is Hannah Glass, and I'm a longtime Homewood skier and a Homewood home owner. I'm here to echo what others have said. I want my family, our neighbors, to have continued access to the mountain where my child learned to ski. Access to what is in essence our own backyard. The developers are not negotiating in good faith. They've actively disrespected our community and others by failing to adequately ensure public access. The language they used here with us today is fraught with flawed public access language and fraught with loopholes. I'm concerned that if the project moves forward with flawed public access language, that the developers will take advantage of us all and move forward with plans that limit community use. TRPA must reject this application outright. If we don't stop the project from moving forward now, it'll be harder to change this flawed public access language, since every step forward signals developers that they can move forward with their goals of privatization. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person we have is Dan Copenhagen, which has already spoke.
Excellent. I have one other comment. I
Sir,
promise to
I'm
be
sorry, I'm going to have
very
to go
short.
back to what I say to everybody, which is you'll get your chance at a second bite of the apple potentially, but we have a lot of other people before you.
Got
So
it.
to put your name twice on this list, I'm sorry, that's not necessarily the right thing to do. We need to let everybody speak first.
Very
That
well.
being said, I am very impressed by the organization that I see in front of me, the logo on the hats and on the shirts. It's beyond impressive, but it's also a tad bit intimidating. And just like I did in the legislature, it's important that we recognize everybody in the room. Just when I had Moms Against Guns, and then I have the NRA the next day, it's wrong to take everybody at one tranche. But I've gone through everybody that was on the list from Keep Homewood Public. So now I'd like to try to go to some people that may want to testify on something else on the agenda, or for or against or neutral on the project. Is there anyone else that is speaking that is not part of the Keep Homewood Public Group, which we will return to, that would like to speak at this time? If so, please line up two at a time in the thing. And please remember to say and spell your name, because again, I don't have your names on the list. And therefore, for record purposes, we kind of need that. So please proceed, sir. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for listening on my concerns. My name is Christopher Tuck, CHRISTOPHER. Tuck is TUCK. I'm just an individual who lives in the community on the West Shore. And it seems like everything is focused on Homewood right now, but this to me is a larger issue. There's about a 30-mile stretch minimum on the West Shore. You've got Tahoe City beginning, Sunnyside, Tahoe Pines, Homewood, Tahoma, Rubicon, Meeks Bay. This isn't just one location. This is the whole community of the West Shore that's going to be affected by this. I think that there's a lot about what is public access, and we really need to define that. And I want to just reiterate that. What does that mean? What does that mean to Homewood? What does that mean to Tahoe? What does that mean to the community? TRPA is who we're looking for a lot of these answers, so we're just asking for your help. As of right now, it doesn't feel very public when you say that we're gonna be able to access the mountain, and every other ski resort has already put up their season passes. They've almost stopped selling them. Yeah, Homewood hasn't even let us have a choice yet. I was supposed to be employed there, but I still don't know about that. Nobody knows. Also, you guys, if it is gonna be a private resort, what is private about that mountain? You're on a main highway. You have access from the public going across to, from the ocean, or the lake is right there. The lake is completely public, so like, it doesn't even make sense that Homewood would want to do this. I'm a homeowner in Tahoma, and I've been so for 7 years. I bought my home in 2017 after the 2011 plan was approved, because I thought, great, here's an opportunity for me now to get what these people, or many of them have talked about, with generations of access to the local community of Tahoe. I'm bringing my family from San Diego to let them have access to this. And I'm so afraid that it's not going to be there in the future for them. Almost like I got tricked. So again, I just want to reiterate, what is public access? And what can you guys do today to enforce that this will happen? Whether it be cancel their plan and make them start over, start charging them $5,000 a day, whatever you got to do. Please help us, the community, know what we're getting into, because we all feel slighted right now. And it's not just Homewood, it's the entire West Shore. Thank you for your time. I appreciate everybody.
Thank you, Christopher. Appreciate it. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Andy Buckley, ANDYBUCKLEY. I am an employee of Homewood, but today I'm speaking to you as an industry expert and also as a colleague of 200 plus of my fellow employees. As I mentioned, I have 40 years of experience in the industry at multiple resorts worldwide. I started my career in the French Alps, and I've worked for Vail Resorts in Vail, Colorado, at North Star, and more recently with resorts such as Deer Valley, Sun Valley, Jackson Hole, and many other smaller resorts, including Tahoe Donner. And I've become very familiar with what drives and what makes resorts work and what doesn't. What I do know is that ski resorts, and I'm going to read my notes because otherwise I'll forget something. What I do know is that ski resorts are capital carnivores in their needs for constant maintenance, equipment, and upgrades. That appetite traditionally is satisfied by abundant visitor volume. However, what we're seeing in the industry is the small resorts struggling to maintain visitation amid a consolidated pass market. It's almost impossible for them to get that visitation. And many are struggling, and many are closing, and many are dying. Even resorts that are experiencing several 100,000 visits have very, very slim margins. That can sometimes be hard to understand and consume because it seems like the ticket prices are so expensive, but it is a truth of the industry. The model that Ed and the Homewood partners have described is a hybrid with funding mechanisms that ensures community access with a revenue stream that ensures the updates that Homewood needs and deserves. The amendments that Ed has also mentioned are small and common sense and ensure the ease of operation for our visitors. That is why I was brought into the team, because I have that expertise to guide the way that public access will work both operationally and from a design standpoint. I have spoken with members of Keep Homewood Public, who I honor, who I know support the development. In fact, we've heard a great deal of that today, that everybody supports the idea of the development. I also know that some falsely believe that the resort could be run as an imagined GoFundMe local amenity. That is not true. It is not possible. The development is the economic vibrance that is needed to guarantee that there is gainful employment for the 200 plus employees for whom I'm responsible. These same folks are also community members. They have bills, they have mortgages, they have kids in school, and they are true lovers of the Homewood Resort. You will hear from some of them later. You'll hear from some of them later. With what I've shared, I ask that you keep in mind these comments and consider approving the amendments to the master plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Andy. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, TRPA committee. My name is Chris Hoffman, CHRISHOFFMANN. I'm here today because I wanted to kind of give you a different perspective, one of someone who's both an employee and also a local. I grew up on the West Shore, and I'm a homeowner on the West Shore in Lake Tahoe. I graduated from North Tahoe High School in 2012. After that, I went to Sierra Nevada College in Incline Village, where I studied ski business and resort management. Spent the next 10 years working for Homewood, and today I am the mountain operations manager. Now, Homewood, since day one, has taken care of me. I came in as an intern, and like most college kids straight out of college, had no idea what I was going to be doing next. And my mentors there and the leaders there, they gave me a route. They gave me the chances to go take classes. They sent me all over the country taking avalanche classes, taking welding classes, taking mechanical classes, leadership classes, things to develop me and make me who I am today. I am not alone in this. There's hundreds of other employees that have a very similar sentiment that I do. It's been a great place to work, and they truly do take care of us. Now, I wanted to paint a scenario with two different perspectives. I want you to imagine Homewood on a powder day after 3 days of constant snow, and finally the skies open up, it's bluebird, and it's what everyone here is waiting for, right? You pull into the parking lot just before the lifts open. This happens often, I've seen it. And you pull right up, you get a front row parking spot. Awesome, great. You go wait in line, and there's maybe a dozen, 2 dozen people waiting in line for first chair. Compared to our neighbors, a very small amount. You go up and you go skiing, you take 1 lap, there's no tracks, 2 laps, no tracks, 3 laps, same thing by lunch. You're like, where is everyone? Now, from the perspective of the resort, and as a resort employee, we groom the mountain, we shovel, we work as hard as we can to get this place open. And around noon that same day, we have the same question, where is everybody? Well, the answer is it's a David and Goliath situation with 2 Goliaths. Vail's Epic Pass, Altera's Icon Pass, they've taken up the majority of the market share. They're 60% of the entire industry, and they're the bigger names. The rest of us are treading water, trying to keep up. So what are we doing to fix this? It's exactly the plan that Ed talked about. We're trying to do better. We're replacing gondolas, cats, and the whole infrastructure. And, you know, we've said we're going to be public. We are going to be public. And from my perspective, we're trying to do everything right. So I'm here today to ask on behalf of myself, my employees, and the future local kids that were like me growing up to please approve this to guarantee the success of Homewood in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next speaker.
Hello. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Alec Tandara Coons. I would probably check the list for spelling because it's going to be a pain otherwise. I'm one of the operators at Homewood along with Chris and others and me in the food and beverage department. I'm here to give you my perspective. These words are my own. Myself, along with everyone here today and everyone at Homewood, are the people who hope to serve this community this winter. And for the most part, we are looking very much forward to doing so. We are the team holding down the fort right now while we're waiting for these approvals to go through. We're the team in season that makes sure the lifts spin by 9 a.m. and the parking lots are cleared every day. We're the people that make sure Big Blue is dug out on a powder day. Chairs are in place, and even the Clivis toilets are, at least by definition, sanitary. I'm the one who cleans them. And by that same token, I'm the one that makes sure there's hot burritos instead of cold sandwiches at that Mid-Mountain Lodge. We are the team that makes sure that the Powder Day smile is matched with the hot meal and tall beer in the bar. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the work that KHP has done to protect access to Homewood, but I reject the notion that I too don't also want Homewood to be public. I just believe that we need to take a different tack at this point. The mountain is special and deserves to remain open, and holding corporate entities to their word is critical in a time of low trust for big business. With that said, as a longtime operator at Homewood, I want to see the project go through as soon as possible so my team and I can get back to doing good work with all of the resources unlocked to give the community a better experience. I've been with Homewood for about 8 years, my entire time living in Tahoe, and thus far has been the reason why I've stayed in Tahoe. despite my first California resort work experience being shoveling snow onto the trail to give pass holders a chance to ski something for the holidays. The reality that's plain to see is that our mountain is hurting, and as of yet, Discovery Land Company is the only operator putting up a plan and funding to do something about it. If circumstances were any different, this development already would have happened, would have been paid for, and I'd stop looking at an ugly concrete slab at Mid-Mountain. To some, this may feel like a compromise. And the thing about compromise is that no one will get everything that they want. But having any access above just driving past another abandoned ski resort is a pretty big deal in my opinion. And the thing you should know about this delay is that it's not affecting the intended target, in my opinion. DLC has the resources to be patient, or if they feel they need to, just walk away from the deal. My ability to plan and serve this community for another winter is to this date crippled because of this uncertainty. Delaying development is by definition delaying operations. So of course, these conversations about limited to zero operations are on the table. So in considering a course of action that requires these approvals, I ask that you remember that, your neighbors are the ones taking the hit while we wait on this.
Thank you,
And that-
Alex. Unfortunately, the time's kind of ran out.
Okay, I just asked you to support the project. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to the next speaker.
Hello, committee. My name's Doug Fagel, last name spelled F-A-G-E-L. I am a member of the Homewood team. I have been for the last 8 years. I wasn't tasked to come up here and speak, but what I was empowered and allowed to come up and speak to this committee and respectively all the people online and all the people in the room. Speaking from my experience, 24 years living in Tahoe as a business owner and being a part of the Homewood team, coming on as a backcountry guide, and 8 years now and escalating to a position as the director of outdoor pursuits. I'm in a unique role because I both report to the people at Homewood as well as to my counterparts at Discovery Land Company. And while I think that yes, it is a unique model, that is part of the challenge, that is part of the task of the job, is saying, look, we're entering a new phase within Discovery Land Company. We have this really exciting project, bringing on Ed DeVita to help bring in vision to how we're going to make sure we serve not only the vision of the community, but the vision of our greater company. And that is to integrate with the community. That is to make sure that we are not only serving the community and making sure these relationships that we're at right now, which it just feels, feels bad. It doesn't feel like we're helping each other. And I think there's something to that. Like, how do we look at it from a different perspective? My biggest goal within being my position as the director of outdoor pursuits for Homewood was to create teams and to create career opportunities for more people in the snow sports industry. That is what we see our community struggling with. We see it all across the industry, not just here in Tahoe, but people are really struggling to have a lifelong career in jobs that can pay well and in jobs that, their seasonality makes it difficult for people to own homes and, qualify for work programs for affordable housing. So that was what I was most inspired to be able to create. Where we're at this moment is I see, is driving up here in the controlled burn at Sugar Pine. And I'm like, this controlled burn of like all the red, it's like, it's for accountability's purpose, right? It's like, that is good. We want to be accountable. We want to make sure everyone has access to the mountain. And that is the model we're working on. My concern is that controlled burn is turned to a wildfire. And if it shuts the mountain, we're all going to lose our jobs. And all of these people are going to not have anywhere to ski. And there's not going to be insurance to cover the private land. And there'll be no trespassing signs up. Right now, you can walk on the mountain right now because it is open and is insured by a privately owned company. Please, I push everyone behind me to change how they're looking at it to support the revision to the master plan.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
With that, next speaker. And if anyone else wishes to speak, please step forward. It's testifying on a self-individual basis. Otherwise, I'll return to the list that was given earlier from the Keep Home and Public Individuals organization.
Yes, my name is Stuart Smith. It's spelled Stewart, and Smith as you expect. I'm a current full-time resident in Tahoma, and I'll keep my comments brief. First, with regard to the CEP revisions being economically necessary, well, you don't have to be a contracts law professor to know that someone who only wants a better deal is because they found a better agreement down the road. It doesn't matter if it's a legally binding contract or a community enhancement plan. However, the changes are not the only option, though I suspect JMA would prefer not declaring bankruptcy, abandonment, or would I expect them to be able to sell it at a reasonable price anymore. But assuming changes are approved as stated, as the slides that we saw earlier that were breezed through at a rather quick speed, what traffic mitigation efforts are included? Currently, it's showing that all of the traffic has been compressed from 2 parking lots down into a single structure that I'm assuming enters and exits both on 89. Are they both on 89? I don't expect a traffic circle to be put in necessarily on 89, perhaps next to it. I don't think a traffic light is currently in the works. But what is going to be done to reduce the likelihood of 2 idiots driving in and out of it at the same time and running into each other on a snowy road in the middle of winter? As we all know, driving in the snow is an acquired skill. And there are plenty of people who are from out of town. And if it is publicly accessible, I'm guarantee you an accident is inevitable. There's no center lane to turn into from the left. Anyone coming north is going to have to block traffic. Anyone coming south, well, they can take a right, assuming they don't slide off. Will there be a full-time tow truck available to clear the 89 as soon as possible, or are we gonna have to push the wreck off ourselves? In any case, an accident will happen, hopefully not on 89, but it's gonna happen. It's just people driving in the snow, problems happen. Beyond that, I would just like to say that I do not necessarily support their current plan, but I understand that sometimes changes need to be made. However, I agree with Keep Home and Public that I would prefer a full reset, but I don't believe that's probably going to be viable. Anyhow, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stuart. With that, is there anyone else individually wishes to come forward? Otherwise, we'll call on Don Bean, then Kevin Hokinson and Rusty Keeley.
Hello. Thank you for allowing us to speak this afternoon. I do appreciate it. My name is Don Bean. I have a home in Homewood that's near some of the people who have talked tonight. And we've had this family home for 56 years. I moved up here full-time about 10 years ago, so we're full-time residents. I'm here to strongly urge you folks to reset the Homewood project. TRPA reject the application right out because it's no longer a project that will enhance the community. And let me give you an example. And on our street last week, they put in a power pole in front of one of the houses on our street. It took all day. It was a mess. Maybe it took 3 or 4 days. However, at the same time, a customer or folks that GMA knows, they put in power, but it was underground. It was invisible, no power pole. Why didn't they allot a little bit more money in their budget and put the power pole in front of my neighbors underground? I don't know, but to me, that's not necessarily community enhancement. And that's not really thinking for our community on what they thought was best, they didn't do. I have some photos of that. If you'd like me to submit them, I have that. So in closing, I think that at this point in time, you should not give approval to their project. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Christopher Tuck is next, Kevin Hokinson, Rusty Keeley. Okay. And so we'll just, I guess those 3 individuals are not here. And then we have Lori Kress and Judy May had signed in earlier.
James, I'll take their spot if they're missing.
You're a funny guy. That being said, are they here? No. Okay, I've extended or exhausted the list I have. Is there anyone?
Judy May.
Judy May. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you for your time. And I would like to also ask for a hard reset. And my husband and I are full-time residents in Tahoma and have been for the last 8 years, but have enjoyed Tahoe for most of our, well, all of our married life and spent a lot of time skiing at Homewood. The TRPA's mission statement, as I know you're all aware, states that it is to lead the cooperative effort to preserve, restore, and enhance the unique natural and human environment of the Lake Tahoe region, while improving local communities and people's interactions with our irreplaceable environment. The proposal from Discovery Land Company does the opposite of all these things by closing off access to our secured, treasured environment, by alienating the local community's interactions, in prioritizing club members who will neither live here nor improve the community, and does nothing to preserve the history of Homewood as a ski area with local access. So in honor of brevity, I will just say ditto to all of my prior speakers from Keep Homewood Public, and please consider disapproving this application outright. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Hi, I'm Jane Catterson, and I had my name on a list. I don't know what
I
happened
don't
to
know where
it.
that list is, so sorry.
Okay, you're hiding it.
Jane,
Um,
could you spell the name just so I have it correct?
Catterson. I've been in Homewood since I was 9 and I'm now 68, so go figure. I learned how to ski there. My son learned how to ski there, and like everybody behind me, the mountain means a great deal to me and my family. What I've been hearing today is, in order to define public access, it might take a committee to enforce violations, maybe on a daily basis. And to me, that sounds like a project that's not quite right. We have a project that was based on enhancing our community. We have a ski area smack dab in the middle of Homewood, which is a very, very small town. And I can't imagine a developer wanting to privatize the mountain that people drive by every day. This is our home. This is our town. And we would like community access or public access. And as a person who's not a developer, but thinks about a developer coming in, why would you want to alienate your community like that? Just make Homewood public. Thank you. Please deny this application.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who hasn't had an opportunity to speak at this time? Please come forward.
I signed some list when I got here. Hi, my name is Lynn Hurst, H-U-R-S-T. If it was E-A-R-S-T, maybe I would take heed to my dinner with Warren Miller way back when GMA, when you guys owned Alpine. And I had dinner with Warren Miller and he said, man, you guys, if you can connect Homewood, Alpine, and Palisades, Tahoe, excuse me, you will blow away the rest of the world as far as terrain goes. Well, Alpine went to Squaw and we have that lift. God, would it be unbelievable if we ever had a lift that ran from the top of Homewood over to Alpine. Go figure. Here we are. I've skied at Homewood most of my life. My daughter skied there, boarded there. I have Christmas pictures every year at the top of that hill that I treasure for how we've changed. It's the most beautiful place in the world to ski. You're like going off into the water. Don't take that away from us that live on the West Shore. I live in Tahoe Park. Please don't take it away. Figure out what the definition is. Come together with the developer, make it work for everybody. You know, they need to make money. We want to enjoy it. We want public to have access. Figure out a definition that works, that they can't do their thing to deny us. Don't let it be that I have to go rent a room at the hotel in order to take my family to ski there. because I don't want to have to do that. I want to go there and enjoy it because it's just beyond beautiful and we all deserve to enjoy it. I'm sorry, I'm emotional. I really am, but it's that important. It's that special a place in Lake Tahoe. Don't take it away to only let a few enjoy it. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. With that, my list unfortunately jumped from 35 to 69 on the back page, so I apologize. Do we have a Rusty Keeley, number 71? Or a Dan Taurus? Okay, those are the only lists I have. Is there anyone else in the general public that would like to speak at this present point in time? Okay, Mr. Copening, I will come back to you, but I think we owe it to those people who are on phone to listen to all their concerns and all those on Teams. And then I'll just give you one final last minute. to think about that. So I guess we're going to now turn it over to the capable Maria, sorry, long night. In that respect, could you please then turn it over to manage the muting, unmuting of virtual members of the public with raised hands?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 15 hands raised online. The first hand up is Sherry Francesconi. If you unmute, you can make your comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Sherry Francesconi, owned property up in Tahoe since 1965. Started skiing at the age of 3. My kids started skiing when they were 4, have grandkids coming. I would employ TRPA to get everything in writing and to list the local access into eternity when they have the paperwork that's being filled out by JMA. Please, I just implore you to list the word eternity. It seems that their past practice has been agree today, changes tomorrow. So just wanted to just state that, and also no discrimination. PowerPoints, the 5th one was that they had stated they wanted to agree to allow public, but then number 5 on one of the first PowerPoints, limited due to traffic and lift tickets. So they put in that to their limitation for the sale of lift tickets. On the 6th item, they listed architectural quality. They've already violated that. If you were to view the structures that they have currently already built on Sacramento Avenue, which is just south of the Homewood property, looking at those properties, you can see that the architecture of those buildings that they've built do not match what they have submitted. The parking structure, they stated that they would build a parking structure that would not be viewable or would not be able to be viewed by the lake. I would question them on that. How can you build a parking structure that is not able to be viewed by the lake? Something they stated. Again, I would employ you to get things in writing. When they stated how they didn't know the number of people that were being brought in, that's being very deceptive, because absolutely they know how many people are being brought into the resort. And of course, when you add amenities, you're going to add a desirability of more people to come. I would also request that you look at the building at Rainbow Ridge. There were some limitations opposed or listed by TRPA about building at Rainbow Ridge. However, there have been plans to build at that ridge, and so I would encourage you to look at that. The tickets still aren't on sale while they profess to be supporting of the community, and as well
Ma'am,
as
I'm afraid that we've hit our time limit and we're going to have to move to our Next speaker. Before I get to that, Maria, today, as many people may know or not know, today is National Daughters Day. And so if you could tell me how many people we have online so I can know to disappoint my daughter on the concept of a late dinner or not, I'd appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, we have 20 more hands raised.
20 times 3, 60.
It's about an hour.
Or more. All right. Thank you very kindly. Next speaker.
The next hand up is Peter Kappelhoff. Peter, please unmute to make your comment.
Thank you. My name is Peter Kappelhoff. I'd like to express the concerns of our family regarding the disturbing proposed changes to the previously approved master plan for Homewood Mountain Resort. Our family has long supported the project as approved in 2011. We're very much in favor of a revitalized Homewood as a community asset, but not as a private club with token public access. JMA Discovery claims it is going to provide for public access, but apparently is resisting putting written measurable requirements into its application. It's clear that JMA Discovery has been disingenuous with its vague promises of public access to the resort. The current application has no mention or commitment to public access. As such, it is clear that they've been misleading the public and negotiating with community stakeholders in bad faith. Discovery has a history of developing only private resorts, and at least one case has done what it is attempting to do here: promise public access only to renege once the project is approved. The community has been disrespected by this membership model with unenforceable promises of public access proposed by JMA Discovery. This is a betrayal of the very community JMA relied on to achieve approval of its master plan in 2011. In fact, the 2011 master plan stated, quote, "A central goal of the plan is to restore Homewood as a key gathering center for Lake Tahoe's West Shore and to maintain the heritage of a ski resort that can be enjoyed equally by local residents and visitors." JMA Discovery is now also proposing to drastically change the physical character of the resort represented in the 2011 master plan and relied upon the community when the project was originally approved. The approved master plan, quote, "conceived as an alpine village community in the architectural style of the classic old Tahoe lodges," unquote, is now proposed to be replaced by jarring multi-story mountain modern buildings completely out of character with the surrounding community. This is being done in complete violation of the master plan, which promised, quote, "certain architectural features, in particular gable and hip roof shapes, dormer configurations, as well as the use of exposed timber and natural materials, are designed to express the Tahoe Lodge design theme in the manner of the Tahoe Tavern and Ermine Mansion. TRPA and Placer County should be embarrassed by the approval of the Lot 3 Fawn Street residences now under construction, which in no way comply with these aspects of the approved master plan. For these reasons, we urge TRPA to listen to the community which it serves and deny the revised Homewood application. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Next hand up is Blake Hershot. Blake, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, my name is Blake Hershaft. I'm a full-time resident and homeowner in Tahoe City. I'm an architectural engineer and former chair of a regional planning board. In the interest of the vice chair's daughter, I've cut half of my statement. I'll go quickly. I care about Homewood because it is where my nieces and nephews have learned to ski. It is a key recreation area for residents from Tahoe City to Meeks Bay, and especially for those who only can enjoy winter sports on the weekend when other mega resorts are nearly inaccessible. Monday to Friday, employees of our community like TRPA staff, TCPUD staff, elementary school teachers like my wife, local parents who can't afford $25K per year and all the costs associated with being on a ski team at Palisades. Homewood is a centerpiece to our local community. Thank you to the TRPA board for your service and for the opportunity to speak today, for stating so eloquently that Tahoe can be an inspiration to others. To me, that expands to creating an equitable community with equitable access to local recreation. The applicant, Ed DeVita, knows nothing about equity. He lives in a $10.3 million house in an equestrian community. He takes a private jet to go ski. He is at the center of the book Billionaire Wilderness, the Ultra Rich and the Remaking of the American West. And within Discovery's entire portfolio, There is not a single publicly accessible mountain. The proof is there, public access is already gone. Last year, season passes went on sale August 10th, and none are on sale this year. I urge TRPA to ask what's going on there and whether public access really exists. Public access would be 7 days a week, open to all pass holders at a reasonable price that teachers and firefighters can afford. I'll forgo the rest of my comments and just ask that you reject the project and cede the rest of my time to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next is Carolyn Selig. Carolyn, please unmute to make your comment. Carolyn, if you're online, please unmute.
Hi, this is Carolyn Selig, and we own our house on Upper Snowbird Loop in Homewood, and my two sons ski on the Homewood ski team, and we have a family pass to the mountain. And thank you for taking your time, and I know it's gone on quite some time today, but the couple of things I wanted to highlight were how much we agree that there should be a development on the mountain. We agree with the 2011 master plan and feel very much for the staff and team that spoke today. We, as well as they, would like to see the mountain open for this winter and have been eagerly awaiting ticket sales, which have still not been launched, nor has the ski team been announced, which is most likely forcing us to go to another mountain this winter. I think the main thing I also wanted to highlight was, as a CPA and a business owner, the math needs to work, obviously, for the investors. And we agree with that. But the math also needs to be evident in the definition of public. And currently, there is no definition that incorporates lift tickets, daily usage, and or how many of those lift tickets or daily usage tickets would be accessible to residents of the West Shore and or anyone else who is not an owner of a $200,000 membership. Again, we know that the mountain needs to be viable, but there are other mountains like Diamond Peak that are community mountains that are also quite viable. And they've also invested in lifts that don't break down regularly or need to be closed. We love Homewood. We love the team that works there and takes care of our children every day. And our main goal would be for TRPA to enforce a public definition that is easy to enforce. I'm an audit partner by background, and something that is vague and complicated would be incredibly difficult for TRPA to enforce on an ongoing basis. It needs to be specific, it needs to be measurable, and it needs to be in writing so that all of us are clear. If you look at Coeur d'Alene, that is a prime example of the business model run by Discovery Land, same as Yellowstone. We do not want a Coeur d'Alene or Yellowstone in our backyard. Thank you for your time, and I have submitted numerous letters to TRPA with this same information.
Thank you. For that, next speaker.
Next is Chris Huseman. Chris, please unmute to make your comment.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Fantastic. First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. You can probably guess by my voice that I'm not local to Homewood, but I do believe that I've at least a little bit of experience in the matter at hand. 2.5 years ago, Discovery Land Company began to develop in and around my community in the Scottish Highlands. I could probably talk for quite a long time about the problems we've faced since DLC arrived, the total lack of transparency, the widespread environmental destruction, the repeated instances of unauthorized construction, but I know that the critical issue here is that of access. So I'll stick to that. And here in Scotland, the right of public access to land is codified in the law, which we call the right to roam. And while DLC have promised repeatedly to respect the word and spirit of that law, the truth is that they've taken every available opportunity to abuse it. They've confined access to so-called core paths across their estate, misappropriated concepts such as curtilage, and hired security teams to move people off the land that they have a legal right to use and enjoy. And this is not the only place that they've treated this way. The same is true in Barbuda, in Portugal, the Bahamas, and beyond. In many of these places, the situation is actually much worse. Above all else, DLC resorts pride themselves on exclusivity and privacy. That is what their ultra-wealthy clients want, and so that's what they must offer in order to make money. It's fundamental to their entire ethos as a company, and this means that, despite what DLC's publicists or community engagement officials might tell you, you are not their neighbors, you are not their partners or their friends. You are in their way. Now, speaking to you from 5,000 or so miles away, I'm not in any position to tell you what you should or shouldn't do in your own community. But I can tell you what I know and what other communities facing DLC developments are screaming out, that this company cannot be taken at their word and that they cannot ever be trusted to place the needs of residents and locals above the pursuit of profit. I hope you take this into consideration as you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next commenter.
The next hand raised, first name on Zoom is Deanna. Deanna, if you could state your full name for the record and unmute to make your comment.
Deanna Boyette, Boyette. I want to thank everyone present for allowing me to speak. I have a home in Rubicon Bay. I have skied Homewood for over 50 years. I think it's imperative that Homewood remain publicly accessible. Clearly, that's not the intent of the current applicant. I therefore ask for a hard reset. Please reject this application, and I reiterate, Homewood is a public recreational mountain, and TRPA can use its powers to ensure that it stay that way. A community enhancement project cannot exclude the community, and this currently is exclusive. Please adhere to the 2011 plan, and any amendments require them to include public access definitions in writing. I concur with Carolyn Selig, who eloquently stated these facts. I cede my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next hand is David Murray. David, please unmute to make your comment.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. My name is David Murray, and I live in Tahoe. Homewood has been an integral part of my family's life for decades, providing cherished recreational opportunities that we hold dear. As local homeowners, we have called Homewood our home mountain, and it holds significant emotional value for us. My son has been skiing at Homewood since he was just 18 months old, and now 10. He has been on the Homewood ski team since he was 7. Losing this public recreational opportunity is something that we are fighting hard to prevent. There's an increasingly apparent underlying agenda to privatize Homewood Mountain, limiting public access once approvals are secured. This is consistent with the business model of Discovery Land Company, which has a troubling history of environmental and community harm. They demonstrate a clear trend of prioritizing profit over environmental stewardship and they often operate under the radar and throw money and lawyers at their self-imposed disregard for environmental regulations. Their approach suggests that they prefer to ask for forgiveness rather than permission, believing that they can navigate around necessary scrutinies. For instance, in their Barbuda Ocean Club project, Discovery removed mangroves, protecting internationally recognized wetlands, leaving the local ecosystem more vulnerable to storms and extreme weather. This development also restricted local access to essential natural resources, adversely impacting fishing, farming, and cultural activities. Similarly, Discovery Land proposed the Lewis Road project, a luxury development in the ecologically sensitive Pine Barrens, which environmentalists argue that it threatens one of Long Island's largest aquifers. Their plan to build homes and a golf course faced significant resistance due to groundwater contamination, despite promises to mitigate this runoff. Their Los Cabos project in Mexico also faced complaints for unauthorized alterations of critical water courses during their construction, raising serious concerns about local water systems. Most recently, at exclusive Yellowstone Club, Discovery Land faced backlash for destroying federally protected swallow nests using pressure washers during nesting season, demonstrating a blatant disregard for the environmental stewardship. This incident exemplifies the serious concerns regarding how they might treat Homewood Mountain and its surroundings. These cases reveal a disturbing pattern of environmental negligence and community opposition. This application and staff report for this meeting are disturbingly vague regarding continued public access. This lack of clarity raises significant red flags about the developer's true long-term intentions. We have witnessed similar tactics in other Discovery Land projects worldwide where promises of preserving access and environmental integrity were abandoned post-approval. This is not the business model that we need or want in our basin. It's obvious that Discovery Land does not do public. And for these reasons, I urge the TRPA to reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next is David Powell. David, please unmute to make your comment. David, if you're online, please unmute to make your comment. We'll circle back to David. Next hand up is Stephanie Fausek. Please unmute to make your comment.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Foucek, F-O-U-C-E-K. I am a resident of Tahoma, a long-time season pass holder and Homewood skier along with the rest of my family. I was fully supportive of the master plan as presented in 2011 and made that support very clear, especially because of the focus on community enhancement and community access. I will make this short, but want to share that I agree with all that has been said previously about the importance of Homewood remaining a community-based and open public space for recreation for all. And I request that you ensure that true and full public access continues at Homewood Mountain Resort. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next is Louis Fielding. Louis, please unmute to make your comment.
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Louis, I can see you're unmuted, but your microphone doesn't seem to be picking you up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please
Okay.
make your comment.
Thanks. So I fully agree with all of the points that the Keep Homewood Public Group has made about ensuring public access. I think that we're all in, sort of violent agreement about that we would all like to see the ski area revitalized and improved and redeveloped, whether consistent with the 2011 plan or some modifications. So I'm not going to say that the TRPA and Placer County should reject the amendment, but that they should require further amendment to clarify and specify accountable public access for the resort. I think an important area that hasn't been brought up is that part of Homewood is public. The Forest Service bought the Quail Lake parcel, including the Quail Face area, in 2009, I believe. So that is a public area that in part of that permit, Homewood asserted was essential and integral to their operation of the ski area. So that is public land that has a history of use that is accessed through the ski area's facilities that needs to be maintained. I believe in California, there's actually a prescriptive easement to that. Similarly, for access to the backcountry up around Ellis Peak, that has been used for years to access via the ski area. So those are access to public lands that need to be maintained in any form going forward. Some of the statements, as echoed earlier from Discovery and JMA, are pretty concerning and reflect sort of a level of contempt to the community and the customers that have continued to support Homewood while they've sort of let it get run into the ground. Our hearts definitely go out to the employees who have also been left in the dark by this process and are left with a lot of uncertainty about what's happening with the ski resort. But I think they should, be aware of the public statements of Art Chapman of JMA, that part of the reason for privatizing the resort is that they would be able to operate it with less employees. So, as the demand for recreational opportunities in Tahoe, particularly skiing, have been increasing over the years, eliminating Homewood as a facility that's open to the public is just going to drive more and more people to fewer and fewer areas that I think is opposite of what the goals of a planning agency should be. So please hold Homewood accountable by requiring enforceable elements of the plan as defined by the Keep Homewood Public Group to ensure public access and the nature of a community enhancement project are maintained. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next is Mary's iPhone. Mary, if you could state your full name for the record and unmute to make your comment.
Hi, I'm Mary Porteous, a resident of 6150 McKinney Drive since 1997. My family has skied at Homewood and Tahoe Ski Bowl every season when it's been open since 1980. I echo all that others have said. I'm asking for a hard reset on the JMA Discovery Lands amended application. I've read through the entire 24-page TRPA Community Enhancement Project publication. It was written in August of 2007. Under that publication, TRPA has the authority and the responsibility to reject any application that does not demonstrate the desires of the community, that does not improve residents' quality of life, that does not provide public access, that does not provide clear public benefit and strong public support. JMA and Discovery Land's current application no longer meet any of the CEP criteria. JMA has not done anything thus far to improve the local community and residents' quality of life. It's obvious in what everyone has said, and we have all been experienced the destruction with just their 7 condos that failed so far. This is no longer a matter of just public access. This project does not have community, local public support. Per TRPA's own CEP manuscript, TRPA has the authority and the responsibility to reset this application as it fails to meet TRPA CEP criteria. The community has spoken and made it clear they do not support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker on Zoom is M. Peterson. Again, if you could state your full name for the record and unmute to make your comment.
You bet. This is Michael Peterson, Michael Peterson, Peterson. Our family cabin's at 5225 Sacramento Avenue, and we're directly across from Lot 3 construction war zone. I presented my 3-minute multiple times about this community enhancement project at various meetings. Today, I'll take a different approach and give you a day in the life version following an email correspondence I sent Monday to include JMA Discovery and Homewood Mountain contacts regarding construction on Lot 3. And it goes, I'm not sure where we stand on the communication and the timeline. So far, the plan seems to be written on an Etch-a-Sketch. A JMA resource was helpful in approving some relocation from midweek through the weekend to lower our off-the-chart stress level living in a construction war zone heading into my daughter's wedding on Saturday. The TCPUD project has been nothing short of a nightmare, and although they've been fairly supportive in our request to get in and out with reasonable delays. Our daughter's wedding at Sunnyside on Saturday was a day to remember, but unfortunately we came back to the cabin last night on a wedding high to apocalypse 2 in the morning. The TCPUD has the road a mess. The subs on your projects block the driveway so we can't get out without a 10-point turn and hitting the new blanket telephone pole that was put into. I had a very heated exchange with Meeks Lumber delivery driver, which was close to something more than a heated exchange. The garbage hasn't been picked up, and needless to say, we went from an all-time high on Saturday after the wedding that should have lasted at least a week to our wedding buzz crushed on Monday, and it's inexcusable. We packed up and went home to try to salvage our wedding memories. We spent years trying to make and celebrate. To belabor the point, we brought people from Switzerland, Boston, Maine, New York, Maryland, Chicago, Minnesota, Texas, Idaho, Colorado, Montana, Seattle, San Diego, and all over California to Lake Tahoe to celebrate with us, to visit our family cabin that we talked to them so much about, only to have your project significantly impact my family and our life experiences we've earned over the 70 years that we've owned our cabin. I know you have a male dominant workforce, but once they disrespect or they dismiss my wife, we'll have a problem just like we did today with Meeks Lumber. I will continue to bang the drum that says for the past 3 years, we have not been able to enjoy, rent, or work remotely at our cabin. Your mid-October no dig deadline is a business deadline, which frankly is a you issue, not a me issue, but you continue to make it a me issue.
We have a life to live and we shouldn't have to have it at the mercy of your project. Market One Builders is a general contractor, must be learning on your job or the lowest bidder. There's more that goes on. I'm just about to run out of time, so I'll end with some of the key points that I stated. At some point, we may become neighbors with the people in the project, but it takes a neighbor to be a neighbor. My point is, this is phase one. This is how they treat their neighbors. The thought of going through this hell and not having long-term access to this hill is not right. And as Julie Reagan stated, as mission
Sir,
driven.
you've hit your time, so we're gonna have to move to the next speaker. No, sir, you will move to the next speaker. I gave you more than a sentence or two to finish your statement. I don't believe letting people wind on for a long time is appropriate, respectful to everyone else. Therefore, next speaker.
Next speaker is Jane Hokinson. Jane, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jane Hokinson. It's Hokanson. I'm actually talking tonight on behalf of my son. He was there and unfortunately had to leave because he has a 6-week-old daughter who was waiting in the car for 3 hours and he really wanted to speak. So we've been a part of the Homewood community since 1964. He obviously hasn't, but I have. And Homewood Mountain Resort means a lot to us. The main points that he wanted to get across was that we're asking you to not go forward with this project and approve the amendments that they're asking for, because we don't believe that JMA and DLC are acting in good faith. We don't believe that the resort will remain open to the public. And one of the reasons is that my son just happened to be near one of the Discovery Land employees when they were pitching to a potential investor. And basically, they effectively said that the resort will go private eventually. And he heard those exact words. Second, he wanted you to, or TRPA, to be cautious when you're looking at the stats that JMA is giving regarding the ridership decline from 2011. In 2011, we have to remember that Homewood Mountain Resort joined in with Alpine and their pass. And they also at that time gave college students passes for $150 a year, a season. So he just wants you to be aware of those stats. So I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I want to thank all of the people in the Homewood community that were there today and tonight, and anyone who's spoken online to ask that this project not go forward.
Thank you, Jane. I apologize. I'm sorry we couldn't get to Kevin before he had to leave. I do note here he was number 17 on the list, speaking for self. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next speaker.
Next is Josh Shelton. Josh, please unmute to make your comment.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very well. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to comment. First, I'd like to direct this at the Vice Chairman to compare the Keep Homewood Public Organization to NRA and voice that you're intimidated by our presence is a shame and it's offensive. This is a grassroots organization that is desperately trying to protect one of its most valued treasures. Following that, I'd like to repeat a lot of what has been said tonight and voice that I overall support any development at Homewood that has been pending since 2011. I'm a resident of Meeks Bay and currently teaching our 3rd generation of ski there. Just as so many people have said tonight, it is a treasure to our community, and to see community access and public access being eroded is a shame. I am asking TRPA to honor the master plan and honor the community and the citizens and follow through on rejecting this amendment. This is not an amendment. This is not a revision. It is time for a new application. With that, I will cede my time. Thank you for hearing my comments.
Thank you for that. In that respect, since you've called my name, that being said, as I indicated, any organization that appears as a group is extremely impressive and at the same time intimidating. So if you're going to quote me, like I tell the press, quote me right. That being said, next speaker.
And just for awareness, we have 10 more hands raised, Mr. Chair. The next hand up is Gavin Feiger. Gavin, please unmute to make your comment.
Hey, good evening. Gavin Feiger, League to Save Lake Tahoe. We sent a letter on June 26th to TRPA staff and executives, and I did not send it again for this meeting. Apologize, but I will send it again. Excuse me. We had 3 requests for analysis to determine consistency with the master plan. They were around transportation impacts, sediment reduction calculations, and enforcement. So, I was really happy to hear the discussion earlier, especially with Graham and Cindy talking about enforcement. I'll get to that in just a second. For transportation impacts, what we'd asked for was in winter to fully estimate the impacts from the proposal, including changing visitor demographics, which you've heard a lot about today if people have to go to other ski resorts. In summer, the food and beverage service and maximum number and size of events was not clarified at all. So it's kind of impossible to do an analysis around that. So we'd like to see that clarified and included in an updated transportation analysis. The second thing was sediment reduction calculations. There were some discrepancies in the documents, which we pointed out in our letter. So we'd just like to see a little more detail on how the sediment reduction calculations were conducted. And the last one is around enforcement. And we'd love to see permit conditions or a development agreement that codifies a lot of the promises that are in the community enhancement project. And for us at the League, especially around the alternative transportation options, and even hoping that those do become permit conditions and development agreements. I'd love to the enforcement piece is tricky, especially when you rely on third parties. This is a great opportunity, as was discussed earlier, to start talking about how maybe a third party or through some other process, TRPA could ensure that when relying on third parties for enforcement, that it actually happens. So those are the 3 things. I'll send a letter again from late June, so the committee here has it, and realize this is information only. So looking forward to seeing those details come out in the actual proposal that comes up for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next is Frederick Crosby. Frederick, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, thank you. I'm Frederick Crosby. We've had our house on Tahoe Ski Way for quite some time, and my kid have grown up learning to ski by that little red schoolhouse there in Homewood. We love the area. And I appreciate everyone's point today on both sides. We all want change. We all want to see the place get developed. Yet we have to recognize what we have in front of us right now. We do not have an easy way, as we heard in the very beginning, to define equal access. Price, a definition of general public or resident, definition of even available spots when they say we'll go to a cap. It's a quagmire, and there'll be no real way to really settle this without something that's very leaky. We've heard the history of how Discovery has previously seeded communities. They promised public access before. We've heard it again and again, and new ones that I didn't even hear about until our Scottish friend came on the line. An environmental promise is broken. You've heard that this organization has no other model but hyper-private, and now says it'll change this one time, and they want us to believe that. We've seen an organization try to hop over rules late in the game, changing the plan for this resort again with a questionable track record. And I just want to point out, we don't have a real path to defend for all those who feel we should move on. This isn't about trying to decide for the next year or two. It's for the lifetime of many people of us on the phone. We have to get this right. And there's nothing that we could think of other than some contorted third-party agreement with three parties, of which the community will be the minority of the three, in order to see things through. And if we think a $5,000 a day fee is going to stop them down, that's less than a handful of the memberships they've got. The only real power we have right now is with you as an agency. The only power we have is to force to have this go through the process again, a hard reset. For all the reasons I've stated, this isn't something that can be band-aided last minute, because it will fail, and it will fail for our life. And that failure will not only be a failure of this, it will be a signal to any agency with a lot of money to come through and says, hey, it's not so hard to do these things in Tahoe. You can roll over the environment of one of America's treasures. And I really hope that doesn't happen. So I'm asking all for a hard reset. We're not working with people in good faith. They've showed it. We've heard it. You can't be fooled and think that suddenly this is going to be the one time they change. Thank you very much, and I see the rest of my time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next is Deanne Bostrom. Deanne, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, I just want to restate everything stated by the Keep Homewood public members that have already talked tonight. I'm asking that the current proposal be denied. If Discovery Land Company still wants to go on with the proposal, I ask that they resubmit an honest proposal, including the environmental impacts. The environmental impact surveys were completed at the very initial proposal of the project. And because so much has changed, I'm asking that all of those be repeated with the new designs and new concepts. I also ask that you are requiring public access to be a component in writing. And I am also questioning the involvement of members that are approving the project, as well as their involvement personally and financially in the project. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next is Amy Kasher. Amy, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, I have a house on the West Shore, and we call Homewood a special place to us, just like all these other people have already stated. And I just wanted to get down to a couple things. One is the developer at the beginning, the spokesperson who spoke for the developer, said he wanted to speak at the end and answer some of the issues that are brought up. And here, if we could get him to answer these things. One, would they be willing to sign a deal that basically and very clearly says Homewood will stay a public ski area, just like any other regular ski area, and have a bunch of details in there so that they can't backtrack like they did at the golf course. And why should we trust you, taking your word anyway, that you're going to keep it public and not do what you did at Cordoval? Those were my two questions for him. And then with TRPA, I don't understand how possibly you guys just let them go ahead and build those super modern buildings that were never supposed to be built because it was supposed to be traditional mountain vibe. I have no idea how they got through TRPA, because when I just wanted to build like a tiny little rock wall, like 2 feet high, for about 5 feet in front of my house. I had to go through hoops for you guys to approve it. And now that got through. I don't understand that. And I don't understand how you guys haven't forced them to sign on to a fire evacuation plan. And I also am questioning what's going on behind the scenes, and I feel tempted to issue through the Freedom Information Act, get emails, because it doesn't seem right. It's not adding up. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next is Suzanne Hughes. Suzanne, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my call. I ditto what so many have stated this evening and the official Keep Homewood public statement. Thank you.
Next hand is Sherry Holland. Sherry, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, thank you so much for everybody for participating in this call, and I'm calling in via Zoom. My name, like I said, is Sherry Holland, and I'm a homeowner at Sugar Pine Lakeside in Tahoma, which I bought about 4 years ago.
love it and bought it in large part because of the lovely Homewood Mountain Resort, just being about 2 miles away. And so I also want to ditto what everybody, all of my neighbors and community of Keep Homewood Public has already said. So I will end there with that, and thank you all for participating.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next is Lisa Bergout. Lisa, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, yes, Lisa. We've owned our place in 2008. I won't get into all the details about how our kids learned to ski and all this stuff, but we were really excited with the 2011 master plan, and we're looking forward to that, but just kept on watching the ski resort languish, as everyone said, and nothing has been done. And it just, I want to echo what someone else said about their rock wall. It seems like there's so many rules and regulations that a plan that was, approved in 2011 should really be, rethought in a way that's applicable to now. And the other thing I will say that's so special about Homewood in our area is that we're not like this exclusive community, that we're really inclusive, and the vibe here is like really casual. And that's the other thing that we just really love about the West Shore. So other than that, we really want to see improvements, but we want to codify public access, but that also means affordable pricing. So again, I'm just repeating what a lot of people said, but I did want to say how like the community itself isn't that kind of community, and changing it into that would really be a travesty. I think also for Tahoe itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next is David Powell. David, please unmute to make your comment.
Is it okay?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I've David Powell, Powell. I've skied at Homewood for about 55 years, owned a cabin just off the north side for about 50 years. I very, very much want Homewood to survive as a first-rate ski area. For me, my kids learned to ski there, my grandkids have skied there, and hopefully more generations to come. I fully understand the business model problem for this ski area. And I also understand that the mountain needs to change their business model so they can continue to survive. I'm okay with some kind of a partial membership model. I also very much agree with a statement made by the committee earlier at the beginning of this session, that there needs to be a public access discussion to sort of pin down the words that are in the master plan right now. And I hope that's a very civil discussion where they sit down and the HMR and the Discovery folks just have a meaningful discussion on what those words need to be. I know that you're not going to have all kinds of details in the master plan, but there's all kinds of variations and combinations that can be put together. The Homewood could offer varying membership levels. You could have with and without parking. You could have members being able to bring guests or not. You could have weekdays and weekends, and you could all owners of SDRs or winter leases. There's all kinds of details that could have different levels of membership at different prices. The aspect of the non-member access to the mountains, that could be put in there as some kind of a fraction of the lift capability. And as the lift situation changes, that fraction could change, or the number could change. There's all kinds of little details. How much you want to put in the master plan, I don't know. But maybe very, very small perturbation on the wording in there now, which basically says and Ed DeVito and the group confirmed that today, that they plan on giving public access. I think that they, at this point, should be allowed to sit down and have a discussion on what changes in those words need to be made. But the idea of just shutting down the whole thing and starting over is absolutely ridiculous. We will
Thank you, sir. I
lose the ski
appreciate you.
area.
I let you go over a couple sentences. Next speaker.
Thank you.
Next speaker, second to last hand raised, is Heather Peterson. Heather, please unmute to make your comment.
Hi, my name is Heather Peterson, and we love our family cabin at 5225 Sacramento Avenue. My in-laws have a cabin down the street, and we share our cabin with them. My children's godparents have a cabin on the street. My husband's childhood friends since before he was born live on the street. Family friends that we have known for over 45 years live on the street. My brother has a cabin on the street, and my children's godparents do. We live directly across the street from Lot 3. We have been living with the construction for 3.5 years. Yes, the half year is there. That's when they first started on the dirt in order to get their stuff done before they had to meet their deadline date to start the project. The lack of respect for the environment, the basin, the lake, the water, the mountain, and the wildlife is disturbing. It breaks my heart when we hear the mother bear in her cubs in the dumpster that has not been secured and that has nails and boards, and I'm sure it's a work site, has toxic material in it. My neighbor who works a full day comes home and picks up trash that is left by the workers that attracts the bears, bringing them to our cabin as well. He picks it up and bags it every single day and has every single week since the project has started. Our houses are filthy. Our driveways are a mess. Our yards have flags and spray paint. Like everybody else, my heart leads and moves to the lake. It's my comfort place. I love the basin, and I know we all do. We have lived by the phrase, the mountains are calling and I must go. I ask, what is it? What is your why? Why are you all doing what you are if not to protect our mountain? When we come here, we as a neighborhood have requested regularly to have the green tarps put up around the work site. It feels like we live in a ghetto. I am yards away from the jewel of the Sierras. Please respect the basin. Please respect the earth. I ask for a hard reset. As a homeowner of one of the 4 homes that are directly impacted in this first phase, I ask you to think about what is going to happen in the next 10 years if this is the disrespect to the community and the land and the earth and the lake. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next is Robert Millslegel. Robert, please unmute to make your comment.
Yes, thank you. My name is Robert Millslegel. You heard from my wife earlier today. I was unable to attend the meeting in person today as I am a director of the Meeks Bay Fire Department and had an important meeting I was unable to miss. Fire is on everyone's mind on the West Shore. To date, North Tahoe Fire does not have a development agreement with Discovery JMA, despite a last-minute 2022 MOU from JMA agreeing that they would have an agreement in place by the end of December 2022. It is now almost October 2024. Still no agreement in place. Discovery has said they do not agree with the 2014 evacuation life safety report requiring them to provide certain firefighting equipment such as a Type 1 fire engine, a brush fire unit, amongst other things. At this time, I urge you to deny the proposal by JMA and Discovery. Do you have any questions for me?
We don't ask questions and back and forth in our public comments, so I appreciate your time, and we'll move on to the next speaker.
Next is Michelle Dyke. Michelle, please unmute to make your comment.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
oh, perfect. Thank you. Hi, my name is Michelle Dyke. I live on Sequoia Avenue. I echo everyone's thoughts and pleas and requests to have Discovery for us to reset and have them resubmit a plan and ensure that Homewood stays public. One of the speakers earlier had posed some questions, and I don't know, and I just wanted to reiterate, I thought it was a really good comment to actually bring the representatives back online and answer some of those questions, because it would be nice for them to assure us and be able, agree that they will sign something ensuring that it stays public, etc. So I can't say anything more than what has been said here, but I do just wanted to voice that I hope that you'll consider having them resubmit a plan and have some really strong language ensuring that Homewood stays public. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next is Rachel Hitchcock. Rachel, please unmute to make your comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. My name is Rachel Hitchcock, and I have been skiing and snowboarding at Homewood for over 40 years. I learned how to ski and snowboard there. I worked there as a ski school instructor. I taught my son to ski and snowboard there, and I have been a pass holder for almost 30 years. I have been very grateful for the people who work there, and I appreciate their concerns about Homewood continuing. I want continued public recreational access to Homewood Mountain while enjoying the redevelopment promised in the 2011 master plan. Unfortunately, passes are still not on sale, despite the fact that they usually are sold starting in August. Homewood has stated that they cannot sell them if their application is not improved. This sounds like a threat to me. I believe that the developers intend to privatize after receiving this approval. The language around public access is flawed because there is not specific language defining what exactly public access is. How many people get public access? Where do people have public access? When do people have public access? Nothing in the application prevents Homewood from privatization, and there are no enforceable specifics about public access. Please do not approve any proposals that do not ensure public access to Homewood for all people on all days in all areas of Homewood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Mr. Chair, there are no more hands raised.
Thank you. With that, we'll return to the room. Mr. Copenhagen, I indicated I'd give you a minute and a half one last time, but out of protocol, I will also be giving the applicant another minute and a half after that for comments. Please go ahead, sir. And that will be the conclusion of all comments. Got to turn your mic on, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I wanted to just make a comment, maybe on a very positive note here, that Homewood is very capable of surviving as a public ski hill without going private. There are many examples of small ski resorts around the US that run profitably. In fact, one of them is right here in the Tahoe Basin, Diamond Peak. It's only slightly larger than Homewood. Thanks to IVGID's financial transparency commitment, I'm submitting here for the record, for your review, a summary of Diamond Peak financials for the past 2 seasons. You'll see that they generated solid operating profits each year. 3.9 million in the 22-23 season and 2.7 million just last season. They use a portion of these net earnings to make capital improvements, a very well-run ski operation, and a beautiful place to ski, just like Homewood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to make a statement at this time?
Thank you, Chairman, Commission, and members of the public. First off, I appreciate the passion about the West Shore and Homewood that runs through the community. That passion, in fact, runs deep, both among supporters and opposition. I'm especially appreciative of our Homewood team and their skills and efforts to plan and operate the facilities, host the public while we pursue the needed approvals. We have hundreds of supporters on the West Shore, and I'm very appreciative and grateful for every single one of them. I'm curious if at the next meeting you want us to fill the room with supporters. Up until now, we've been focused on preparing the content of the application, presenting it in an essential and time-efficient manner, and respecting the committee's time rather than filling a room with speakers reiterating the same message over and over. We have been carefully listening to the comments from the commission and the public. There's a tremendous amount of misinformation being spread, especially by the KHP group. We will respond formally with valid documentation for each of those. It goes without saying that we don't appreciate the personal attacks on individuals and our company using misinformation. However, that is not new. Opposition groups often try to hurt applicants with misinformation and attacks using invalid information. It's hurtful, and listeners tend to believe it, and the false statements propagate, and the false information really leads to sad outcomes. However, Discovery thankfully has an excellent track record of conformance with permits, rules, and laws, all while providing community and economic benefits at every place we work. And we'll share each of those facts with you. The one common meaningful comment that we heard tonight is that everyone wants to ski at Homewood. We have repeatedly assured that our plans for Homewood provide equal access for skiing to everyone. We will work with staff to get that documented to satisfaction. We've worked very hard getting our application complete and responsive. We productively drafted and presented language about public access and enforcement to assure confidence and presented that to the staff. We've been awaiting their reaction for weeks. All in all, other than the time wasting and unreasonable reiterated request to reset and reject the application, this has actually been a productive while laborious day. I assure that we're energized about moving the Homewood project forward and look forward to feedback from staff and meeting with the Regional Planning Committee again soon. And I emphasize, we have an approved master plan. We're not proposing any changes to the approved master plan, especially related to public access. And most important, a special thank you to you all for your service, your time, your effort, your energy, and your focus on this application. We truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I would like to commend everyone for operating in a courteous, fair mannerism and agreeing to abide by the protocols I've set forth at the beginning. And I felt that I was trying to evenly apply those to one and all. With that, I would like to close public comment at this time. And as the chair, again, I did not only operate in that capacity since I'm the vice chair. If you have complaints, please direct them at me, not to staff or to Vince, who escaped out of being the chair for today. That being said, is there a motion, Ms. Aldean, to adjourn?
Yes, I will happily move to adjourn. Thank
I
you, Mr. Chairman.
appreciate that. That being said, all those in favor are welcome to leave in 1 second. All those opposed are welcome to stay here forever. That being said, we are adjourned. Thank you.